Hey now, happy Wednesday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That is Dan Lucero. We've got 3 hours of sports talk coming your way this afternoon. Plenty to get to from Chiefs training camp. We'll talk some Royals. We got some college football to get to later on this hour. Tim Fitzgerald's going to join us. So we've got so much coming your way today on 580 Sports Talk. Thanks so much for joining us on the program today. We're going to start off with the Kansas City Royals here in just a moment. The bullpen is bad. Scott Barlow, bad last night, but generally has been good. What is the balance the Royals have to strike in terms of his usage before they deal him within the next 12 days? We'll touch on that. Plus, where does Carlos Hernandez mix into the same equation there? We'll talk about them here in just a matter of moments. Also this hour, we'll play some One Gotta Go. And how do the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 stack up with the best quarterbacks in the rest of the Power Five? I would personally argue they fall somewhere in the middle. I think a couple conferences have really great groups, and I think there's a couple conferences that have big question marks at their quarterback spots. So we'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit later on this hour. Plenty of audio from Chiefs training camp today. A couple of rookies speaking in St. Joe. We'll hear from Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Wanye Morris coming up here in the 4 o'clock hour. Tim Fitzgerald is going to join us. It's Wednesday. That means the Wildcat Wrap-Up, brought to you by Azura Credit Union. Fitz will join us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We got a bunch of our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We know that Quarterback Season 2 is coming. So who would we pick if we were building the cast for the next season of Quarterback on Netflix? We'll preview Royals-Tigers tonight, and we've got so much more coming your way today on 580 Sports Talk, including What Is Wrong With You in the 4 o'clock hour. All that is coming up here on 580 WIBW over the next 3 hours. We'd love for you to be a part of the show as well. You know the text line number, 785-272-9429. And on YouTube, our comment section can be found on our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Hop on over, go to youtube.com, search Sports on 580, subscribe. We're trying to get to 300. We're very close. We would love for you to hang out and be a part of the illustrious subscriber group to our YouTube channel. And then you can go back, watch all of our videos, including today's live stream, and you can hang out in the comment section as well, which is live right now. Hello to everyone who's watching and listening along, wherever you may be watching or listening from today. Wanted to start with the Kansas City Royals, Dan, and I feel like it's probably something that'll happen less and less in the coming weeks because
yeah,
hey,
we're running out of A block, 3 o'clock A block segments that are going to include the Kansas City Royals. That is for certain. Their days in the A block are numbered. But if we're going to do it, we may as well do it after a win, right?
You would think so. And I feel like the most interesting thing about the Royals between now and the 31st, Monday the 31st, and good reason why we're moving on to other topics is because that is the first day of our weekly Mitch Holthus chats. Training camp, full swing. Anywho, Scott Barlow certainly Scott Barlow, possibly another player or two are going to be moved at the deadline. There has been a lot more talk lately about Carlos Hernandez possibly being dealt at the deadline because he has so much team control left, and he has really stepped up in this current role after bouncing between the rotation and the bullpen over the last couple of years. What is the balance, though, that the Royals need to find between how much these guys are being used, how little they're being used, and when they actually get traded? Barlow is going to get moved. I'm not totally sold on Hernandez. I would imagine Barlow does. And while Barlow was not great last night, he's been very good for the balance of this season, and recently he's been great.
Yeah, and don't let you look at the underlying numbers, the baseball card numbers, scoreboard numbers for Scott Barlow. You see a 489 earned run average, and you think, God, this guy stinks. That's not quite fair. For relief pitchers in particular, ERA is a lot less important than how it is that they come to that ERA, because, you know, when you're pitching one inning at a time, one bad outing, like last night, you give up 4 runs in an inning, it blows your ERA to smithereens, and it takes you 2 weeks worth of good outings to mitigate the effect of the one bad one. So don't pay attention to Barlow's ERA so much. Look at the fact that he struck out 45 guys in 35 innings and only allowed 3 home runs. Those are the 2 real important numbers when it comes to Scott Barlow. He's a bat misser, and he keeps the ball in the ballpark. Certainly pitching in Kauffman Stadium helps in that regard, but he's a bat misser who keeps the ball in the ballpark, and he has experience closing games. Those things are going to make him valuable in return for a trade. Now, he's not going to get anybody's number 1 prospect. He's not going to get the kind of return that like prime Josh Hader got with a year of team control last year.
Right.
But there should be still a market for Scott Barlow and a return to be had, even though last night was frustrating. You know, he only threw 14 balls. He just happened to throw 12 of them to 3 guys.
That's not great.
No, it's not what you want. You don't want to walk 3 in an inning. You know, there's the old baseball adage, and I don't know if this is true or not, and I think any closer would deny that this is true. But there is the old adage that it is hard for the guy who typically works the 9th inning when they come in a non-save situation to replicate the adrenaline, to replicate the focus that you have to have when you come in and you're trying to secure a 1-run lead. And so, you know, maybe guys get a little looser and tend to not be as sharp when the lead they're protecting is so big. I don't offer that as an excuse for Barlow last night, who was not good. Certainly don't claim otherwise, but maybe that's a little bit of what happened last night. And I don't think what we saw last night is going to depress his trade value once we get closer to seeing whether a trade gets made with him. I think he's still going to be in demand because, again, 45 strikeouts in 35 innings and only 3 home runs allowed in that time span. That's good stuff.
It's very good stuff. And just to really further the point about why ERA is more volatile for pitchers or for relief pitchers and doesn't necessarily indicate the full story when it comes to relief pitchers. Last year, Scott Barlow's ERA was 2.18. This year, it's 4.89. Which of those years do you think he had the better fielding independent pitching numbers?
I'm going to guess it's this year because he's not giving up the long ball as often.
Not by much, but yeah, 3.62 FIP last year, 3.47 FIP this year. And again, a reminder for those who aren't super aware or don't know a lot about fielding independent pitching, it's on the same scale as ERA, but it's all about the 3 true outcomes: home runs, walks, and strikeouts.
Right. Yeah. It's it factors in how often you strike guys out, how often you walk guys, how often you give up home runs. And it's an attempt to take the things that a pitcher does not control out of a calculation of their earned run average.
Like fielding independent. There you go. Yep. There's where the name comes from. So he's still going to fetch you, I think, a decent return. My question is, how much do you want to use him? And throw Hernandez into the conversation, too, if he's on the table. How much do you want to use these guys over the next nearly 2 full weeks before the deadline? And should we factor into that conversation, how quickly should the Royals be looking to trade these guys? Aroldis Chapman got traded early. That was great. That moved him when they did. Awesome. Maximize the value for the Rangers. They need a bullpen arm more. Have him for longer. Maybe you got a little bit better of a return. Who knows? But I think that made a lot of sense. So I think just from a big picture standpoint, how would you view these next 2 weeks for Scott Barlow, for Carlos Hernandez? Are you more in a spot where you say, hey, look, we're going to keep using them like we normally would every other day or maybe every third day because we want to keep it business as usual, keep them in a rhythm? Would you say we should trade them like every minute is a minute wasted? Like we should move them right now so you don't potentially ding the value anymore? And the reason why you would do that is, let's say you use Scott Barlow tomorrow afternoon, 1:10 first pitch tomorrow in the season or the series finale. And Barlow has a bad game. You put him in the 8th inning and he has a bad game again. Well, that's 2 in a row. What if there's a 3rd in a row? Do you suddenly feel like maybe the value is going down? That's one reason why you might want to try to facilitate a trade as soon as possible. Or would you be in the camp where we'll trade him anytime in the next 12 days? He might only get 1 more inning. Like he might get in a low leverage spot 1 inning just to keep him from being rusty, but we don't want to take any other risks. How would you assess, and what's sort of your philosophy in this kind of decision where you know a guy is being moved and you're still trying to cross all your T's and dot all your I's when it comes to maximizing their value?
Do you want the snarky answer first or do you want my real answer? Because let me give you my snarky answer first.
Okay.
My snarky answer is typically you don't have to worry about managing the output or the usage of your closer when you're a 27-win baseball team.
That's fair.
28 wins, I guess, after last night.
That's fair.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about how often you use your closer because you're not often using your closer.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not an occasion that happens very often. It's why Barlow pitched last night with a 5-run lead, because you got to get him some work. So that's my snarky answer. The real answer to that question, there's no right answer to the question, but the only thing that's going to impact their return is not going to be whether they have a good outing, whether they have a bad outing. It's velocity holding. Are they mechanically sound? Are they healthy? If you're acquiring a player at the trade deadline, you're thinking about the larger sample size and not a small sample size of what they did in the last week, what they did in the last month. You're thinking about the player that you're getting. And for Scott Barlow, the player that you're getting is pretty well established over the course of his last couple of seasons as a guy who's a slider first right-handed reliever, which makes it a little tougher to match him up against lefties, but he's really tough on righties, keeps the ball in the ballpark, misses some bats, and can work the ninth inning for you. He's got the ability to go. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment of going and trying to get the final 3 outs of a baseball game. You know you're getting that with him. Carlos Hernandez is the same kind of deal. I know I'm getting a guy that throws 100 miles an hour and can spin a breaking ball. Like that's what I'm getting. I'm getting a guy who's striking out 10.5 batters per 9. He's keeping the ball in the ballpark really effectively. He's had good control since being moved full-time to the bullpen essentially this year. So he walked 13 and 47 and 2/3. Like, he's really, really taken to this role. And so if I'm an acquiring team, I'm not going to fuss too bad if Carlos Hernandez goes out there tomorrow and gives up 4 runs in a third of an inning and just, makes one bad pitch, gives up a 3-run dinger, whatever it is. I'm not going to be too fussed about that. I'll be fussed if the fastball comes in at 93, 94 and not 99, 100. That would bother me.
Yeah.
But more important is their health. And you don't want to play it fast and loose with anybody's health anyway, regardless of whether you're going to trade them or not. So, no, I don't think you massage or have to, keep these guys wrapped in bubble wrap between their outings or anything like that. I think you play and you let anybody calling from whatever area code it might be trying to do business with the Royals that you're listening. And eventually, I think something will get done. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen. Usually it takes like one. There's like one move, and then it's like, okay, here come the floodgates. We really haven't had that yet. There were a couple of really minor moves. The Angels, when they dealt with some injuries, they went out and got Eduardo Escobar and Mike Moustakas in back-to-back days. Moose quietly having a little bit of a renaissance year. He was decent in Denver, and he's swinging a pretty good bat for the Angels too. So,
yeah, hit a home run just the other day.
Sunday Night Baseball, he hit a home run. Yeah, so it's been fun to see a little mini Moose renaissance this season. But those moves were made, like mid-June on back-to-back days, but those weren't the precipitating events that kicked off like a trading spree. We haven't really seen that happen yet, but the Royals obviously showed with the Chapman deal that they were willing to be active and willing to get out ahead of the market, and we'll see if they stay out ahead of the market.
I think that after going through all these potential scenarios in my head and coming up with an argument for or against all of them, I think I've come right back to the middle too, and just business as usual until you finally end up making a deal. Because if you're trading for either Carlos Hernandez or for Scott Barlow, you're not acquiring a guy who you expect to be Mariano Rivera down the stretch, right? Like, you're looking for someone who can be useful in the bullpen for 2 months. Well, hopefully, if you're acquiring them, 3 months, you get to the playoffs, you have a reliable guy who can work the 7th, 8th, or in Barlow's case, you're comfortable enough working him in the 9th inning. I think back to when the Cubs traded for Aroldis Chapman in 2016. Chapman at that time was still, I would say, at his peak. I mean, he was unbelievable. His first game with the Cubs, I believe he threw 18 pitches of over 100 miles an hour in one outing. The Cubs as a team had only thrown 12 in the past decade or something. I mean, he was great at the time. And everyone knew the Yankees were going to move him, and everyone knew the Cubs wanted him, and the Cubs gave up a great prospect to get him.
Gleyber Torres, yeah.
But it was like, this was the piece. The Cubs needed a closer. They needed a surefire, no doubt, 9th inning guy. And then that that was the last piece they were missing. And Chapman was a truly elite closer at the time. This is nobody who's trading for Scott Barlow is thinking, we're going to get 2016 Aroldis Chapman.
Right.
We're going to.
This is the missing piece.
Like, this is, I know he was a starting pitcher, but like, this is trading for CC Sabathia or Cliff Lee in the latter part of the aughts. Like, that's not what you're trading for here.
Right.
You're trading for a decent to good bullpen arm. So it probably behooves the Royals more than anything to just act business as usual, as opposed to trying to make this something that it isn't. And it would be fun if he was good enough where you could say, ooh, the Royals can be tricky with it and have some like gamesmanship and one-upsmanship to try to drive up the price or something. That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what either of these guys are.
There might be a couple of bidders. I'm sure there are probably multiple teams that might be interested and might be interested in Carlos Hernandez. We had talked about it earlier this season that the Royals could explore maybe Carlos Hernandez as a trade piece, and that's starting to gain a little bit more traction because he's got so much team control that he could bring back. He could even bring back more in return than Barlow could. Even though Barlow's got the track record, you get Carlos Hernandez for more years. Only 1 year of team control for Scott Barlow. You get more of that with Carlos Hernandez, which might make him more valuable. Going back to your Cubs, they spun that last year with Scott Efros, who had, I think, 5 years of team control left, and they traded him to the Yankees, and they got a pretty good pitching prospect back. I know Wisniewski has been up and down, but a well-regarded pitching prospect.
Yeah, his good is very good.
Back in return for a young reliever, and then Efros's elbow blew up, so nobody's happy. But the return, I think, could be more for a Carlos Hernandez trade, and I hope that that's not one that the Royals are dismissing out of hand because, well, we think he's a building block for us. So no, he's not. He's a good middle to late inning reliever. And the Royals historically have held on to those guys past their usefulness. Like Joakim Soria is a good example of that.
Yep.
But, if Carlos Hernandez is going to bring you back a pitching prospect who's, I make fun of the Royals going after the close to big league ready guys, but I think there's some value to maybe trying to get somebody who can join your rotation or help you sooner or really meaningfully bolster your minor league pitching depth. I think that's worth exploring.
I would absolutely agree with that. By the way, a note on yesterday's game. This is courtesy of Dave Holtzman. I saw this on Twitter, but appreciate Christopher putting it in the YouTube comments too. Last night was the first time the Royals-Tigers game since 1954 in which two teams both broke into double figures and the game took under 150 minutes. That's 2.5 hours. That's pretty incredible.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
The scores last night looked like some slow pitch softball going on. There were 3 different games that ended 11-10. Arizona beat Atlanta by a field goal last night, 16-13. That was a wild game.
Yeah. It was 197 runs, I believe, across baseball last night.
Yeah, and what's really funny about it is the team with the worst pitching staff in baseball, the A's, won in a shutout last night.
Yeah.
And the team with the second worst pitching staff in baseball also won last night at Coors Field by holding the Astros to 3 runs.
Yeah, the amazing thing about all of it, the worst division in baseball is the AL Central, right? We all agree on that.
Oh, yeah.
Every team in the AL Central scored in double figures. The best division in baseball is the AL East. They all scored in single digits and all lost. Over 5. But that's baseball. There's truly nothing quite like it. We'll preview tonight's Royals-Tigers game coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. Right now, we've got to get to a break before a round of one gotta go. Then later this hour, how do the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 stack up against the rest of the Power 5? We'll break all of it down coming up this hour here on 580 Sports Talk.
At Calhoun's going to kill you. Give me $200.
Well, gotta go.
Wednesdays, just before 3:30 that's when we play One Gotta Go every week here on 580 Sports Talk. We're going to hear from a Chiefs offensive lineman coming up next hour, rookie Wanye Morris, along with Felix Anudike-Uzomah. But the Chiefs offensive line is where we're going for my One Gotta Go today. I'm going to take Donovan Smith out, but among the other four Chiefs starting offensive linemen, Jawan Taylor, the newest acquisition, Trey Smith and Joe Tooney, your guards, Creed Humphrey at center. One cannot make the team this year. One's got to go. Who is it?
It's probably the guy they're paying the most with Jawan Taylor. And that's not fair to Jawan Taylor. Just, I haven't seen him work with this group. I don't know what it looks like. I know what it looks like with Creed Humphrey anchoring this offensive line. I know what it looks like with Tooney and Smith mauling people on the interior. I don't know what it looks like with Jawan Taylor yet. So he is my choice because you just don't have that continuity with him like you do with the other three.
No, I think that's a very fair point. I was going to keep Taylor because I want to make sure I have a sturdy, solid tackle in the group. I totally understand the logic there. I am also keeping Creed because he's the best center in the NFL.
I think he is too.
And I don't really want to get rid of either Smith or Tooney because both, I think, are top 10 guards as well.
Agreed.
I'm probably moving Tooney because he's older and pricier for now, and Smith is about to get an extension here within the next year. So I would pick Tooney, but that doesn't mean I don't like Joe Tooney or his game. It just is a very difficult question to answer, I think. But no, I think I'd move on from Tooney because then at the very least, one elite center, we only get one center, but an elite center, one elite guard, one theoretically pretty good tackle on the right side. Nobody's beating the right side of that line, even Philadelphia in all likelihood. So I'll stick with that, and I'll press my luck with whoever fills in at left guard.
So for my One Gotta Go today, we're going back to that point we made about all the offense in baseball last night. Christopher had another good stat in the YouTube comments. 12 teams across baseball scored in double figures last night. The last time that happened was 1894, when teams averaged 7.5 runs per game, and foul balls didn't count as strikes. There was one day that season where 10 of 12 teams scored at least 10 runs. So it's been a long time since we saw an offensive explosion like last night. But you had some classic slugfests last night. I don't know that Tigers Royals qualifies because it wasn't like a bunch of fence busting. It wasn't like you look up and there were home runs flying out. You know, Spencer Torkelson hit 2 for Detroit last night, but I don't think the Royals hit one last night. I think it was all everything was in the ballpark.
I believe you're correct.
And like the Arizona Atlanta game last night is a much better example. Balls were flying out of the park left and right. Austin Riley had a pair. There were a bunch of guys had 2 home run games last night, naturally, as you'd expect with all that offense.
Right.
So we're talking about offensive explosions in sports, the slugfest, if you will, the offensive slugfest. We know it by different names. We call it a slugfest in baseball. We call it a shootout in football. You probably call it that in basketball too. But we'll just limit it to those 3 sports: football, baseball, and basketball. The aesthetics, the enjoyment you get as an enjoyer of the sport of watching an offensive eruption, a high-scoring game in baseball, football, and basketball. Which of those do you enjoy the least? One got to go.
I think it's basketball. Like when it comes to baseball games, I generally prefer lower scoring games. Like I love pitchers duels, and not because I need to have a game that's done in under 2 hours, but I just love great pitching and a game that ends 3-2 and the closer comes in a high leverage situation. Like I love that kind of game, but it's also really fun to watch dudes hit the ball 450 feet repeatedly. There's something about the true slugfest that I think is fun. NFL games, when they get that high, generally, even if it's largely because of bad defense, generally your quarterback or maybe a star running back in college is doing something unbelievable, and that's always a blast. Like the Super Bowl this past year, like that was awesome. Both teams get into the mid or upper 30s.
High-level quarterback play.
Quarterbacks were incredible. The Super Bowl the Eagles had previously played in, 52, Nick Foles versus Tom Brady, which is very funny to say in retrospect, but that was amazing. Like the offensive play was just perfection. Basketball, I think it kind of sucks. Like NBA games that end like 128 to 119. I'm like, I don't know. Like it feels like the effort level is different in a basketball game with unending scoring versus a football or a baseball game with unending scoring.
See, I know people feel that way. I'm not surprised that that is an answer. And I know that there are a lot of people that feel that way, especially it's probably the most common complaint that I hear from people who don't like the NBA. They don't play defense. Man, these dudes are awesome at making shots.
Yeah, I guess I should use a different word. I don't want to say it feels like there's no effort, because I think it feels like that because the shot making in and of itself is effortless.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would just prefer a game that has, like, I guess if we got a playoff game where there was a lot on the line, I might feel differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like your run-of-the-mill January game where it's just a lot of up the court 3, up the court mid-range 2, up
Sure.
the court layup, up the court 3. This sounds stupid, but like there's almost too good. Like mix it up a little bit. Give me a little variety.
Like one I think of that's emblematic of that, game 3 of the Western semifinals this past year, the Nuggets and the Suns, where Devin Booker was 20 of 25 from the field.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic had 53 points and his team lost.
Yeah.
132-126, I think was the final score.
Yeah.
Like I like those games because the shot making, sometimes it can be tough, especially, if it happens in the playoffs, that guys are locked in on defense. And like, sometimes it doesn't matter if Devin Booker is going to shoot 20 of 25. It does not matter if there's a hand in his face. He's made everything that night.
Yeah, that's true.
So for me, it's baseball. I'm always more enthralled by a well-pitched game. That's always the aspect of baseball that I've enjoyed the most. Now, don't get me wrong. Every now and again, it's a Coors special can be a lot of fun. Goodness knows I grew up and have watched my fair share of those, given where my favorite team plays their home games. But it can also be just infuriating that it's like, oh, it's 13-7, and now it's 13-10 with one out in the 8th inning and there are runners on the corners. Like, somebody get somebody out. This is getting ridiculous.
That's how I feel about college baseball. Like,
yes,
just make it out, make a play. What was it last year in the College World Series where like 3 games on the same day all were just completely bananas?
Yeah, there was that one game, I think Missouri State led Oklahoma State 12-1 and they lost by 15 runs.
Yeah, like could we get a ground ball like to the shortstop, please?
Right.
Yeah, that I totally understand that with baseball. But again, I like watching dudes hit the ball 450 feet. That's also fun.
I'm out on the high-scoring baseball game relative to, like, the high-scoring football game is always a good time, especially college football.
Yeah.
Like, high-scoring college football, hook it to my veins. Give me 55, 51 every week.
Yeah. No, that's true. Plus, in college football, similar to college basketball, there's probably something dumb that happened because you're dealing with teenagers in certain cases.
Also, the low-scoring game in baseball typically means somebody is doing their job really well, where I would argue that low scoring game in basketball means somebody doing their job really poorly. They're not putting the ball in the basket. And in football, it usually means that the quarterbacks are doing their job very poorly, and nothing is worse than a poor quarterback game.
That's fair. No, I think that's a fair point.
Shout out Colts Broncos from last year is a perfect example of that.
By the way, Christopher on YouTube says a pitcher would think that way about
correct.
The low scoring
No, that is correct. That's the pitcher in me coming out.
I was not a pitcher, and I enjoy that same kind of baseball, so I'm with Dan on that one. Let's get to a timeout. When we come back, the Big 12's got some really good quarterbacks at the top of the league. How do they compare to the Pac-12, SEC, ACC, Big 10? We'll break it down after this on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Chesko with
just 50 days away from the start of the NFL season, and we are in the 40s from the start of the college football season. It's close. We are getting there very, very soon. And I saw, as my Twitter timeline continues to have more and more football talk, thank God for that, I saw a couple of tweets the other day about how the Pac-12 goes into this next year with the best quarterbacks of any Power 5 conference in the country. And honestly, I think there is an argument for that. You've got the Heisman Trophy winner, who's going to be the number one pick next year, in Caleb Williams. Michael Penix, I've seen some people say he might be a first rounder, maybe a day two guy. He's going to be old this year, but he's been great for Washington since coming over. Bo Nix, I don't know if he's going to be a pro, but he was really good for Oregon last season. Cam Rising, again, probably not a pro, but really good college football quarterback. Has been great for years at Utah. I think DJ Uiagalelei is going to have a lot of success now at Oregon State. He transferred from Clemson, and I don't know that DJU is a great thrower as a quarterback. I know he's a great runner, though, and he's physical. And guess what Oregon State likes to do? Run the ball and be physical. And previously, they had been doing a two-quarterback thing. So, like, okay, you know when the one quarterback is coming in, they're going to run the ball. Like, that, it really doesn't work. DJU can do both. So I think he's going to be very successful there. So that made me think, as it normally does, where does the Big 12 stack up relative to the Power 5? Because I think that's really the only fair way to judge this. There just aren't a lot of great G5 quarterbacks out there, and they're much more spread out, the ones who are really great. So when you look at the Big 12 and their top group, and we've done this before. We talked a couple of weeks ago, in fact, with Jake about this, how there's a very defined, clear top four in the Big 12. It's Jalen Daniels, it's Will Howard, it's Quinn Ewers, it's Dylan Gabriel. And, like, I don't love Gabriel, but he's, Big 12 first-team quarterback last year. He had a good year. He's had a good career overall. And after that, what do you think of Blake Shapen? Do you think Chandler Morris can stay healthy and is any good? Like, there's a lot of question marks.
There's some veterans. There's guys who played a lot of college football. Keaton Slovis has played a lot of college football. I think he's decent. Like,
John Rice Plumlee.
Yeah, John Rice Plumlee's another one. Like, guys, I think you can win games with.
Sure.
I don't know if they're guys you win because of, and I think that's a important distinction. Like, I think Daniels is a guy you win because of. I think Howard is a guy you win because of. I think Ewers can be a guy you win because of. But the rest of the league, yeah, even at my most charitable, I can't get much past, yeah, sure, you can win with that guy.
Like, Cincinnati's got Emory Jones. As we said the other day, is he good? We don't really know if he's any good. West Virginia is a disaster. Slovis has a lot of experience, but he's also now on his third school for a reason. So there's a lot of maybe, I think, in the Big 12 with that, again, very clear group of four. So I broke down, I already mentioned the top guys in the Pac-12. I broke down the other conferences and who the likely best quarterbacks in all of those are. The SEC, pretty deep. I don't know if there's not like a Bryce Young or hell, even a Hendon Hooker for college purposes this year.
So, yeah, like Alabama doesn't know right now who their quarterback is going to be. That's a little weird. That's
super
different.
Weird. Super weird. But you've got Will Rogers, who a lot of people think is the best quarterback in that league, who I think is good. He worked in the Mike Leach air raid very well. We'll see what he does with an adaptation of that system this year. RIP Mike Leach. But I like Will Rogers as the quarterback. I had totally forgotten until today that Devin Leary transferred to Kentucky from North Carolina State.
Yeah, good player.
Totally forgot about that. Again, very solid player. Jaden Daniels at LSU, I think, is really good. I think he's really dang good. KJ Jefferson, awesome. If he avoids the turnovers, he's awesome.
A lot of fun. Don't love him as a passing quarterback, but a fun player.
Spencer Rattler do anything for you?
Maybe. I mean, this guy was the number one quarterback in the country coming out of high school. Like, I don't think he's a bum. I don't think that he's quite lived up to the hype, but I think he's a guy that South Carolina proved down the stretch, especially last year. He started playing better. They proved they could win with him. You haven't mentioned Joe Milton yet, Tennessee. That's my favorite guy.
I was just about to get to Joe Milton because I think if Joe Milton right now was standing inside Robert Neyland Stadium and he threw a ball due west, I think it would reach our studios. I really do. I think he could do it.
Remember those commercials? You might have been too young for these. Remember those commercials with John Elway throwing the Nerf Vortex?
I have seen these.
The ball with the whistle and the tail. Did you have one when you were a kid?
I did, yeah.
I had one when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Joe Milton throws a real football like John Elway threw the Nike, the Vortex, the Nerf Vortex. Like, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
He really could, it feels like, throw the ball clean out of the stadium. It feels like he might do it on accident someplace where he winds up throwing the deep ball. But in that deep ball centric passing offense that Tennessee runs, he's going to put up numbers. Numbers. They're going to be a lot of fun. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like Milton a lot. Again, it's just a matter of, is it going to go to the right guy? Because if it does, Tennessee's going to win 10 games again. The other one who I don't think it's fair to include because he's never really played a meaningful game, but a lot of people like him. In fact, I was watching SEC Network the other day because I was watching their coverage of SEC Media Days, and I don't remember who it was on their panel. It might have been Jordan Rogers, who said he thinks Carson Beck at Georgia is going to lead them to another national championship because he's more talented than Stetson Bennett. I think Georgia is going to not take a step back. I don't think they're going to win the national title because I think they've lost so much that even with the players they have, it's hard to repeat that for a third year in a row. But a lot of people like Carson Beck a lot. I'm not going to put him in here because he hasn't played. He played nothing but mop-up time last year, but I'm interested in him for sure. The ACC, again, the top guys are pretty good. Drake May is going to be the number 2 overall pick next year from North Carolina. I think Jordan Travis at Florida State's a good player. I like Jordan Travis a lot. Riley Leonard at Duke is a very nice quarterback. I like his game a bunch. After that, I don't even know. Like, I think it's even bigger question marks than you've got in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Like, Cade Klubnik. Is he good, or was he just better than DJ Uiagalelei?
Yeah. What was that at Clemson last year? Is he going to be the guy that really follows in the Deshaun Watson footsteps there, the Trevor Lawrence footsteps there?
I feel like TV analysts have gaslit me about Tyler Van Dyke at Miami. I feel like all last offseason was, you got to watch this Van Dyke kid. He's going to be special. Dude, he sucked. Like, am I missing something? He's totally not special at all. And still getting talked about, I guess, because he's Miami's quarterback. And then Phil Jurkovec as well, who's at Pitt now.
Yeah, he moved over to Pitt.
Maybe he hasn't played in 2 years.
Yeah,
he's hurt all the time.
He was at one time thought of as a big NFL prospect, but yeah, he hasn't been on the field recently.
In fact, after reading this, I'm reorganizing my rankings that I have written in our notes. I have to reorganize these. I'm putting the SEC last.
Wow, you're putting them below the Big Ten.
Yeah, the Big Ten is all transfers. Like,
it is.
JJ McCarthy, LaGrange Park, Illinois. He is back. He's the best quarterback in the league, pretty clearly. I think.
Some distance. I think there's some legitimate disagreement about how good JJ McCarthy actually is. Like, I got a text from my buddy the other day. There was something on Twitter said that people think McCarthy could end up being a top draft prospect this year, maybe end up a first-round draft pick. And guys, my buddy texted me, says, there's no way this is true, right? Like, there's no way JJ McCarthy ends up a first-round pick. I said, well, like, physically, you can kind of see it. Like, he can sling that thing. He's a big guy. I wouldn't shock me. I mean, I
wouldn't do it, but
NFL GMs have talked themselves into worse quartarbacks than JJ McCarthy.
Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow. Yeah.
Daniel Jones. Like, Mitchell Trubisky. They've done it.
Mitch Trubisky went 2nd overall.
And he wasn't even 6th. I don't even think he was honorable mention ACC as a senior.
Do not believe he was. So McCarthy's number 1. I think Talia Tagovailoa is a good quarterback. I don't think he's great. I would not take him over any of the top 3 guys in the Big 12, but I think he's a good quarterback. He's a transfer from Alabama. Cade McNamara, formerly of Michigan. He's now at Iowa. Again, I think Cade McNamara is good.
Iowa generally has passable quarterback play. Not last year, but generally.
Not last year. Tanner Mordecai is at Wisconsin now. He started at Oklahoma, transferred to SMU. Was pretty good at SMU.
Yeah, he was excellent last year.
And now he's transferring to Wisconsin to bring their offense into the 21st century. Again, I like Tanner Mordecai. I don't love Tanner Mordecai, but I think he's a good player. And then I don't know who's after that. Like, Jeff Sims transferred from Georgia Tech to Nebraska, but Georgia Tech was so bad, it's pretty much like, yeah, we think he's good. I like Ben Bryant, went to my high school. I'm a big Ben Bryant fan. He transferred from Cincinnati, where he led them to the playoff, helped lead them to the playoff, let's be honest. And now he's transferred to Northwestern. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's
Luke Altmaier at Illinois, who started one game at Ole Miss. Like, I don't know what's in that league.
Yeah, like, just looking at this list and ask yourself this. How many of these guys would you not be surprised if they were at the Downtown Athletic Club for the Heisman ceremony? Do it that way. Because for the Big Ten, it's one guy.
Mr. McCarthy.
It's McCarthy.
Yeah.
And for the ACC, it's probably just one guy, and it's Drake May.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I think you could
maybe
argue
Jordan Travis. If Florida
they,
State's really good.
If they win that league, I imagine it's because Jordan Travis is a really good year. I could see it that way. But yeah, realistically, it's Drake May.
The SEC, Milton, yes, I think. Daniels, if LSU's really good.
I think Jaden Daniels could.
Yes. Beck, if Georgia's back in the playoff. I mean, he's going to be a reason why.
I could see it with Rodgers, honestly. He's put up, and I know it's the air raid, I get it, but he's put up crazy efficiency.
Here's the thing about the Pac-12's quarterbacks. Is it really them? Because I watched Bo Nix at Auburn. And I watched Michael Penix at Indiana. And now I watched them in the Pac-12 last year, and they look like awesome. They were awesome. They look like football gods in a new league where typically they don't play a lot of real physical football and defense. Like, certainly it's possible that new scheme, change of scenery, physical maturity, more of an understanding of how to play the position. It is certainly possible that those guys have gotten better. But again, I saw Bo Nix at Auburn, man. I saw what that was. I saw what it was with Michael Penix, a turnover machine at Indiana. And now those guys are studs in the Pac-12. Is it really them, or is it just this is no holds barred? And I think for years you could have asked the same question. You might be able to ask it now about the Big 12. Is it really them, or is it just the schools they're playing, the teams they're playing week in and week out, where it's just a more permissive, for lack of a better term, environment for a quarterback to be great? I think that's less true about the Big 12 than it used to be, though not by much. And I think it's really true about the Pac-12. And that's not me saying that these guys aren't, like, good.
Right.
I mean, Caleb Williams would rule no matter what campus you put him on, no matter what defenses you put him up against. You can make him play like 1995 Nebraska for 12 straight weeks. He'd make plays. He'd find ways to make plays and win some games. But, like, am I sure that Bo Nix is actually awesome now, or did he just go to a place where they don't play as much defense as they do in the SEC?
I would argue that for Bo Nix, that I think he was really good last year. He was very good. But I think his numbers were so different from Auburn, and he was such a different player than he was at Auburn. I could see that argument because I'm still not 100% sold that he is suddenly. I saw someone mention him as a potential first-round pick. Dog, if you take Bo Nix in the first round, I swear to God, I'm never watching your football team ever again. I think Michael Penix really is that dude. He actually, last year at Washington, had a new career high. He threw 8 interceptions. That's the most he's ever thrown in a year. He threw 554 passes. That's a 1.4% interception percentage. That's the best mark of his career. I really do think Penix is that guy. He was hurt all the time at Indiana, like constantly injured. His whole career at Indiana, he played in, I got to do the math here real quick, 20 games in 4 years. He played all 13 this past season and was incredible. He threw for 4,600 yards. He never thrown for more than 1,600 before. I think Penix really is that dude. I can see the argument for Nix, though. I'm totally receptive of that argument for Bo Nix. So, with all that being said, before we get to the end of the hour here, put them in order. Rank them 1 through 5. I would go, I think, and I'm also heavily weighting this because Caleb Williams is the best player in college football, I think, or second best after Brock Bowers. I'd go Pac-12, SEC, Big 12, Big 10, ACC.
I think it's a little more depth in the SEC, so I got to go with them, even
That's
if
fair.
they don't have the best guy. A little more depth in terms of the SEC stable of quarterbacks. I go SEC, Pac-12, Big 12, and then I would go Big 10 over it. Well, gosh.
I favored the Big 10 again because of the depth.
Yeah, there's a lot of old faces in new places, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess some veterans maybe, give them a little bit of the edge. So, who knows? Kate Klubnik could be awesome.
Yeah.
Like that could be a guy, we talked about who would you not be surprised to see at the Downtown Athletic Club. If Clemson 11-1,
he's probably awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see Chad Morris took another job with Clemson, by the way?
I did.
Yeah. Good for him. Dabo trying to repeat.
He's a survivor. He's not going to give up.
Trying to replace Nick Saban's school for coaches who don't coach very, very good.
And want to learn how to do other stuff too.
Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, we'll lead things off hearing from Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Wanye Morris from Chiefs Camp. That's coming up next hour on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, it's the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Dan Lucero. We're here with you until 6 o'clock today. We've got some Royals baseball coming up tonight. The Kansas City Royals taking on the Detroit Tigers, Game 3 of their 4-game series. 7:10 first pitch, 6:30 pregame. You know the drill. Right here on 580 WIBW and the Royals Radio Network. We'll have the 580 Sports Talk overtime conversation of the day coming up at 6 o'clock, right before we send you off to the Royals Radio Network. We've got a great conversation on tap later this hour when Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com joins us for the Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Plenty to get to with Fitz as we wrap up media days from a week ago, and maybe get an update on K-State is still working on any basketball additions. Talked about that with Michael Swain for KU yesterday. We'll see what K-State is up to in that regard. We'll get to today's What is Wrong with You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. See if anyone can take down the speeding sheriff's deputy. Dude was going 61 miles an hour over the speed limit. That is preposterous. And then in here, in just a moment, we will hear from Felix Anudike-Uzomah as well as Wanye Morris. Don't forget, we're taking your texts throughout the show. 785-272-9429 is the text line number, and our YouTube channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Head to YouTube, search Sports on 580. We're the first result. Subscribe, then you can come check out the live stream and hang out with us in the comments section as well on YouTube. Without further ado, let's hop right on into our audio from Chiefs training camp today. You heard from Rashee Rice earlier on Mic'd Up, the rookie wide receiver. I guess before we start and we hear from Felix Anudike-Uzomah, where do you stand on what Rashee Rice had to say today? I know Jake, during Mic'd Up, got really fired up about the fact that Andy Reid has already said that Rice was not in great shape when he reported to camp. He gained 10 pounds over the offseason since the draft, then had to immediately lose 10 pounds now that he's at camp, and he was puking all day today. Are you at all worried about the shape Rashee Rice is in, or is this just maybe rookies got to get used to the NFL grind?
I think Rashee Rice better worry about the shape Rashee Rice is in. If you're throwing up on day one, I know that Andy Reid traditionally runs, even by NFL standards, a tough camp. But, yeah, man, puking on day one, not a great look, especially if you are a rookie, if you are coming into what is a very important position, a wide receiver on a team that is offense driven, that doesn't have a star wide receiver on it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you better be a little more prepared than that. So yeah, I'm a little surprised and disappointed. Who cares if I'm disappointed with Rashee Rice or not? Like that doesn't mean anything. But I am surprised that you've got a rookie out there puking on day one, because if it were me, and I want to make it very clear, it is not me. It could never be me. I'm a 5'10" white guy who runs like a 5 flat 40 at my best. And I couldn't do that right now, I promise you. So it ain't me. But if it were, I would make sure that I showed up to my first NFL training camp in the kind of physical shape where I'm not heaving over a trash bucket my first day at work. I would make sure that was not me under any set of circumstances.
Does this remind you at all of Treylon Burks from last year with Tennessee? Showed up, wasn't in shape, and was like, oh yeah, by the way, I have asthma, and his whole training camp was a mess.
And what else do you have to do? What was keeping Rashee Rice from being in better shape? I guess would be my question. Like, did Call of Duty release a new one? Like, I don't know if he's a video game guy. I have no reason to suspect he is or isn't. Like, what was keeping you? Like, watching the NBA Finals, get on a treadmill. They only went 5 games anyway, man. Like,
yeah. Had to slip that in there.
Yeah, 5 games. You know who won? Denver Nuggets.
That's right.
That's right, baby.
Like I'm looking at Burks from last year. He had 3 catches for 55 yards in his first game, 47, 13, and 14. Those were his first 4 games as a professional. Didn't play for 4 weeks and was better after that. He had a 100-yard game in week 11. He had 4 for 66 in week 17. He played better as the year went on, but the year started really slowly. He wasn't in shape. Camp was bad. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen with Rashee Rice, but like, yeah, if my second-round pick showed up and was vomiting all over the field on day one, I'd say, hey, dude, what's up? Also, someone put on Twitter, I don't know who reported this, but someone who was at camp said, well, maybe he's having a hard time adjusting to the heat. Bro, he played at SMU.
Right.
Dallas is hot. It is very hot. I know he went through some really hot fall camps when he was at SMU, so I'm not really buying that either, but I'm not worried by any means, but not a good look. Optics. You need to win the optics battle when you start camp. Not so great so far for Rashee Rice. We'll get to a couple of other rookies here, though, who spoke earlier today at Chiefs training camp. And first up, the final pick of the first round in this year's draft, the Chiefs' first pick in the 2023 draft, former Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Let's hear what the former K-State Wildcat had to say during his first training camp press availability from St. Joe earlier this afternoon.
Seems like you guys got a good camaraderie already amongst the rookies. What's it been like just you all experiencing the NFL together for the first time?
I felt good. During the OTAs and minicamp, we were already together. Like after practice, we all hung out with each other and stuff like that, just so we can bond more and stuff like that. And I know Ye from a long time, playing against him too. So I had a good camaraderie with him already. So, but yeah. And then also Pac, he a teammate of mine too. So we already basically like bonded already from that. So.
Felix, how hard was today?
Today, I'm not gonna lie, today was tough. Obviously, almost every first fall camp, like even in college, every first fall camp is always gonna be tough. You already got to get, you have to get in shape, football shape, because all the training and stuff like that is not the same as football shape. So today was tough. Hopefully these next 3 days are gonna be easier, and then when the vets come, we'll already be in shape and ready to go.
Coming off the hand injury during OTAs, how are you feeling now? Do you feel 100%? Anything that you're still trying to get comfortable with?
Yeah, my hand's 100%. Like everything's fine.
Was that did you know that in the Sugar Bowl? Is that what?
I heard that in the Big 12 championship. Last play the game. Literally, last defense to play the game. Yeah. So
In the Big 12 championship.
Championship. I didn't know it was torn until I went start training, and then they told me to get surgery right after pro day. So.
How tough was it to be limited in OTAs?
It was very tough. Especially they draft me to play right away. Draft me for first round. So all the coaches expect a lot out of me. So it was just very hard and very tough that I can't do exactly what they want me to do right away. So it was just a lot of mental reps, a lot of mental, just learning the playbook, a lot of knowing their technique and stuff like that. Even though I can't do it on the field, it's just I got to do it mentally.
How do you keep your mind right? Because like you said, they want you to do so much right away, and sometimes you felt like maybe you're just not there yet. How do you just keep yourself to keep going and know that you'll get there at some point?
Just like personally, I lean back on my teammates, especially the rookies. They all know that what my position is. They already know like how big it is, especially I'm a hometown kid. Especially like everybody's leaning on me and all this stuff. So they always try to preach me up because they know it's very different in my shoes, especially being a first round draft pick in your hometown. They know it's very different. So they always try to keep my head up, try to keep me motivated to keep going, and try to keep me just basically tell me every day that what the goal is, so that I'm eventually going to get better. I'm eventually going to be hopefully playing. So.
You talked a minute ago about the expectations the coaches have. What are your expectations for yourself as a rookie?
My expectation is just bottom line, just get through the playbook, just learn from the vets, because obviously the vets, they won a Super Bowl championship. So I even said it before in another press conference. They already been in this position. So I need to learn as much as I can from the vets and as much as I can just from my coaches, so I can be able to help the team out.
You mentioned learning the playbook. Spags defense is known to be pretty tough. How far along are you in the playbook, and how much have you actually learned so far?
I don't know how to really answer that question. I'm pretty decent with the playbook. Obviously, I'm new. I'm just learning the playbook now. So I just need to keep going in the playbook, learning every day by day. Ask the coaches, ask the vets, just like pointers and stuff like that, and just honestly focus on. So we got quite a bit of time, just especially this whole camp. So hopefully by then I'll have this playbook down. So.
You mentioned getting drafted in your hometown. How has your life in Kansas City changed since you did get drafted a couple months ago?
I just had to move differently. Obviously I can't really move the same. I can't really go to grocery stores because everybody thinks I'm a celebrity now. So it's very different, I will say. But at the same time, it comes with the price, being drafted to hometown and all that stuff. So I knew if me doing that's going to come. So I just had to move differently.
Have your buddies at home from high school and your buddies at K-State kind of kept your ego in check?
Oh, no, they know I'm not the high ego type guy. They know that know how humble I am. I never even like try to rub it in their face about where my position is at the same time, because at the end of the day, God gave me this gift, and God gave everybody a different journey. So I never ever want to even rub it in their face. I hang out with them almost all the time. Like this past Saturday, I hang out with my high school friends. Just hanging out with them before I go to training camps, because I won't see them for a minute because they're going to go back to college. So
Let's go last four. Go ahead, Nick.
Felix, I believe before you said you'd come up here to camp as a kid. What was that first day like for you, being on the other side of the fence?
It's just I had to soak it all in at first, because I remember just sitting at the stands. I believe it was 2013, sitting at the stands, just watching all the guys, and then me actually walking on this grass pad just to come down to campus. It's a dream come true, but at the same time, although I'm in this dream, I have to show for it. So.
Blair.
I just wanted to ask you, to set the record straight, who got the better of the Oklahoma matchups with you and Wanye?
Wanye, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't go against Wanye or last year, but the year before that, I did get a sack on him. Even if you can check my record and stuff like that, you'll see. Like he knows it too, because I was always rubbing in his face all the time. But no, he's a great player. He tries to talk, but at the same time, he keeps it like cordial, because there's one time like my whole chain was out. He's like, "Hey, chuck your chain," before one of my teammates tried snatching it. So like he's respectful too. So I appreciate him for that.
Go ahead, PJ.
You talk about being a local celebrity from here and everything. How important is it just for you to keep that tight circle that you're gonna, and people are gonna invade that and try? Oh,
it's a lot. There's a lot of people that obviously haven't came in my life for a long time. Already try to like, hey, this and that, try to talk me up, stuff like that. So I always like to keep it people that have been with me all the way throughout the whole process, like close friends and all that stuff. So I always keep that circle small, so I don't have any distractions outside.
You got a long way to go for the first game, right? Yeah. But you've already come a long way since the night you got drafted.
Yeah.
You asked about your expectations before. Have they changed at all now that you've gotten to be a part of this for a while? Do you feel more confident, or is it a bigger challenge than you thought?
It's still, at the same time, I still got to impress the coaches. It's still the same thing day by day. Just impress the coaches, because at the end of the day, if you don't impress the coach, you're not going to get on the field. So obviously, learning that playbook, learning my technique, doing everything that is possible for the coaches to be impressed by what I do on the field will eventually, hopefully, have me on that field.
Last one.
You mentioned before, obviously, about playing for your hometown teams. I guess my question is, from the draft to the start at camp, was there a moment where somebody from Kansas City said something to you that was either inspiring or sort of moving, given where you are in your career right now?
Say that one more time. I'm so sorry. I lost your thought.
No, you're good. Was there anybody from Kansas City that you know, or maybe it was, a stranger or an acquaintance, that said something to you about playing for the Chiefs that you're going to take with you, or at least it inspired you or motivated you?
Really, I remember I was on the floor with Dante Hall. Basically, he said it really simple. Just honestly, you play football for a reason. Just go out and play. There's no thought into it. There's no overthinking it. Just go out there and play, because at the end of the day, this is just a game. So once you just play literally just a game like how I did in Little League, and just play, do everything right, do everything possible, eat right, do everything, work on your body, everything will just play to play. So that's basically the most simplest thing he said, and I'll take that forever.
How meaningful was it to have someone that you probably watched growing up?
It was very meaningful, especially just literally the day, like 2 days before, just seeing him. I was just like, it's very meaningful, especially the position he was, because he was that guy come like on the Chiefs. So it was just very meaningful just to be next to him and just him giving me some advice.
That is Felix Anudike-Uzomah speaking earlier today at Chiefs training camp, his first training camp media availability. I would also be super geeked out if I got to hang out with Dante Hall.
Yeah.
That would be like the best day of my entire life.
One of the coolest NFL players of my lifetime.
I've shared this before. I didn't even grow up a Chiefs fan, and I loved Dante Hall. He was incredible.
So Chiefs fans will remember a certain receiving touchdown he scored against the Denver Broncos in Denver. I was at that game, and I think it's one of the it's probably a top 5 like play I've ever had the privilege to witness in person.
That'd be a good list. What are the best football plays you've ever seen in person?
Future Random Question Tuesday?
Yeah.
Honestly, we could probably blow that out and do that for an entire segment.
Yeah, we definitely could. All right, put a pin in that one. We're going to keep that for a future segment. No, I thought interesting stuff from Felix. It's pretty cool I mean, we already knew it was cool that he gets to play in his hometown, play for the team he grew up watching and being a fan of. But that is kind of funny to hear, like, yeah, I went and hung out with my friends from back home because they're all about to go back to college, and I wanted to hang out with them before they all leave, which is very funny. It is the opposite of me, where I was the only one of my friends who moved away. All my other friends who I grew up with still live in Chicago. It's like the polar opposite of that. But that's kind of cool that he gets to people around Kansas City know him and know he's the local guy and swarm him like a celebrity. Anything else really stand out to you about what Felix had to say?
I like that Wanya Morris is a good teammate and tells him, hey, tuck your chain.
Yes, I think it's very funny that those two know each other and also remember those things. I saw a video get tweeted out earlier of Felix beating Wanya Morris for a sack while they were both in college in the Big 12. I think PJ Green from Fox 4 TV in Kansas City shared it. Defensive players don't forget. They do not forget. Like batters never forget who they hit home runs off of. Defensive ends and linebackers do not forget times they beat guys and got sacks.
Yeah.
They will never forget that kind of thing. Speaking of Wanya Morris, we've also got him all queued up. What did the newest Chiefs offensive lineman have to say earlier today?
Do you say Wanya or Wanye?
Wanye. It's like one, then yay, yay,
So and yay, so we say yay.
yay, exactly.
All right, Wanya Morris, let's go. Hey, how hard was it today?
You know, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and we're the chosen ones to do this, so they're supposed to make it hard.
What did you do to prepare for this camp over the last, month and a half?
Just trying to stay in shape because, you get all that time off, and it's just about time management. It's just about staying in shape and just doing the conditioning, keeping your technique sharp. So I'm just doing all those little things to make sure I'm ready for this camp.
What did you learn from Donovan Smith and the OTAs minicamp that you're taking into now going to training camp?
Donovan's a great guy. He taught me a lot because I'm a young guy, he got a lot of experience. I mean, he played with Tom Brady. And now he plays for Patrick Mahomes, two great quarterbacks. He taught me a lot about my hands, holding them higher and just be smart and just chill, because they got to come to you anyway. So.
Well, it seems like the swing tackle role might be open on this team. How comfortable do you feel right now about being able to flip-flop and seamlessly go from side to side?
I'm very comfortable. I'm doing whatever coach asks me to do. I just feel like there's no difference when I change sides, and whatever coach needs me to do, that's what I do.
If there is difficulty in that, what's the hardest part maybe about learning multiple positions on the clock?
Just when you get tired, make sure you know that you're on the right or left side. Just being able to switch like that and doing it so much. Just making sure you stay on cue.
How much are you looking forward to putting the pads on and actually being able to play offensive line?
Hey, like you said, offensive line. That's what we do. We in the trenches. I hit people for fun. So I'm very excited to get out here and work with these guys, man. Great talent out here, and just each day get better. That's all I'm worried about. Is getting better each day.
Wanya, what are some of the things that you did to get ready for this camp, in between after minicamp and your first impression of that coming in?
First of all, take care of my body. Make sure my body's right, hydrate right, eat right, and just do the miscellaneous things, like the small things that taking a certain step or keeping my knees bent, not getting up at the end of the play, just finishing, just small things like that really just take you the extra mile.
Wanya, players around the league have always heard about Andy Reid's training camps, how tough they are. What had you heard prior to coming into the camp?
Oh, it's gonna be hell. That's what they told. That's what they told me. But you got to take that to the chin because, like I said earlier, it's gonna be hard. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. So I'm just here to work, really.
I'd like to have a good system to kind of indoctrinate you a little bit as a time to build up to this. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you're prepared for what will come when everyone gets here?
That's what this is for. Like you said, I'm just trying to get better every day. Like after this, probably gonna get some extra conditioning in because those vets, they've been doing this for a long time. So I gotta get used to it. I gotta get ready to go against them. So that's that.
How is the game different in the NFL level than at Oklahoma and Tennessee?
It's like every level it gets faster. I went in there with the ones a few times just to get a few reps, and it got faster. Like those guys are getting off the ball quick. I'm getting off on the right time, but I'm feeling like I'm late. So it's just you just got to be quick and in tune. Just everybody's faster, everybody's more precise, and just locked into technical things. It's like you're not just the talent can get you so far. You got to work hard too, So
Felix over there's a fellow rookie. What's your first impression of him?
Felix. My first impression of Felix is we don't like K-State. But what happened the year before that?
I got a sack.
No, you didn't.
Did I not?
No, you didn't.
They can all pull that up. They will see that. They will see that.
It's okay. It's okay.
Did I not get a sack?
Because your face is on the ground too.
But
Okay. My first impression of Felix, though, that's my guy. You know, we go to work every day. That's my guy. We work every day. Competing is what we do, you know, and just being able to have that friendship that we have, it fuels us more, you know. It fuels us more to just go harder in practice. And he get me, I get him. You know, it's a constant fight. You know, you win some, lose some.
You talk about that friendship. You talk about that friendship between you and Felix. Guys, rookies, as they come in as a draft class, they typically lean on each other as days get long in camp. Is he a guy that you'll be leaning on? You know,
yeah, for sure. And I'm pretty sure they'll be leaning on me, you know, because like I said, it get hard, but we all going through the same thing first time together. And that's when we come together, talk it up, chop it up, pick each other up, because we brothers now, you know, we family. This is Chiefs Kingdom. We part of that now. So we're going to do everything we can to uphold that.
One real quick question. Are you a trash talker?
oh, hell yeah. I'll answer that question.
You heard him. I can, but like I'm a fun trash talker though. I'm not gonna like be disrespectful, but I'm a fun trash talker. I'm gonna make sure you work. I'm gonna make sure you compete because that's what I like to do. Competing is the best thing you can do. It's the epitome of everything. Like competing, it's fun. Like that's why we play this sport. It's a team sport. You gotta compete with your brothers, compete against other people, and just get better, experience the talent. So that's what it is.
Good stuff from Wanye Morris, one of the other Chiefs rookies who spoke earlier today at minicamp in St. Joe. And you heard some of the back and forth there between Wanye Morris and Felix Anudike-Uzomah talking about that sack from a couple of years ago. We don't like K-State here. I thought that was pretty funny. By the way, just saw this as we were listening to Wanye Morris. I think this is significant. We heard yesterday from Andy Reid that they were going to put both Turk Wharton and Isaiah Pacheco on the PUP list to start training camp. Well, Tershawn Wharton today was indeed placed on the PUP list. Isaiah Pacheco was not. He was able to practice and for now is good to go. He has been wearing the yellow non-contact jersey. But as Matt Derrick put on Twitter, and we'll talk to Matt about this coming up on Friday's show, while he will be limited, he's not on the PUP, so the Chiefs feel like he's ready to do everything but get hit hard in that hand. So that's pretty encouraging, I would have to think. Good to see that your number one running back is good to go for the start of training camp. Big year for Pacheco, I think. Can you do this again? Because I think it's not quite as common with running backs, but the sophomore slump is real. The sophomore wall is real. And the number one guy, and he was a bust in general, but like I think of Trent Richardson, who as a rookie came up just shy of 1,000 yards, wasn't especially efficient, but it was, hey, this is a guy. Like this looks like a real player. He looks like he did when he was at Alabama, and he was just awful after that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's a better player than Trent Richardson. But you understand my point that I think this is an important camp so it doesn't become a one-year wonder kind of thing, and he can really step into an even bigger role as that RB1 and can continue to take on a bigger workload once we get to the regular season. So that's really good to hear on the Isaiah Pacheco front. We've got to get to a commercial break, but today's What Is Wrong With You is coming up next, and Tim Fitzgerald will join us later on this hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. The speeding sheriff's deputy is our current winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. But we've got two new stories going head-to-head today on the program to try to take it down. Before we get to those stories, a reminder that Top City Metal Supply cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Dan, let's go to your story here first.
I like my story today, and I'm going to need some input from the ag community on this story so that we can get a little more background on the logistics of what it is we're trying to describe here. We meet 28-year-old Alex David Oling from Rock Rapids, Iowa. He was arrested about 2:35 in the afternoon, Friday, July 14th, on charges of third-degree attempted burglary, first offense trespassing, and interference with official acts. He was on property, Oling was, about 7 miles east of Rock Rapids, and he was found in a shed attempting to hook up a gravity wagon full of corn to his 2010 Chevrolet Silverado pickup. Now, I've done a little research on this.
Okay.
But again, this is where I need the feedback. You and me, both city, suburban kids, didn't spend a whole lot of time on farms.
No.
Gravity wagons are obviously they're farming implements. You can store, my understanding of the gravity wagon is that it is used to transport the grain to the grain elevator, or the corn to the corn elevator. And they call it a gravity wagon because there's a hole in the bottom of it. This is layman's terms, as you can tell. And that's how, instead of like reaching to the top to withdraw the corn or whatever it is, it comes out the bottom.
Okay.
So the gravity wagon. I would imagine these things can get pretty heavy. I would think, though, that you could probably tow it with a pickup truck. And I mean, Chevrolet Silverado, I mean, decent sized pickup truck.
Right.
You could probably get out of there, I'm guessing, with the pickup truck. But I really need, you folks who might have a little more experience with gravity wagons, text the show. I want your feedback on this. 785-272-9429. Explain it to us like we're 5, because we kind of are when it comes to this stuff. 785-272-9429. Explain to us the logistics of what this guy thought he was going to do once he got the gravity wagon full of corn hooked up to his pickup. He had also, Oling had, taken magnets from the Iowa Department of Transportation and put them on his pickup. So clearly he was going to be pretending to do some official business while he tried to haul this corn. Here is my question, though. Once he was caught, did he think he was going to get away fast? Because I don't think you could tow a gravity wagon real fast.
I would imagine not. No.
A deputy was able to talk Oling out of his pickup, but then he attempted to walk away and had to be taken to the ground to be arrested, according to the incident report.
No.
So the wagon is valued at an estimated $15,000, which means it's pretty big as these things go. The corn was valued at $3,750.50. I love how specific that is. And the magnets are valued at $100.
Pricey magnets.
So he's trying to steal corn under the guise of pretending to be an Iowa Department of Transportation worker. I guess what they would want with a gravity wagon would be anyone's guess.
Yeah.
What IDOT would want with that, anybody's guess. But yes, please explain, if you can fill in some of these blanks, how fast are you going to be able to go if you're able, if at all able, to tow a gravity wagon full of corn with a 13-year-old pickup truck? Is that a thing? First of all, was he going to be able to do it at all?
Yeah.
Second of all, was he going to get to the road? How fast was he going to move? I really have a lot of questions as to what this gentleman's end game was.
Yeah, I have a really hard time imagining that was ever going to work out. Really kind of hard to believe. While we await... Oh, go ahead.
No, good. No.
I was going to say, while we await for some more feedback, let's get to a story from Brevard County in Florida today, where a man is behind bars after a road rage fit that included intentionally ramming into cars, striking them with a tire iron, and then throwing a barbecue at sheriff's deputies. The incidents occurred Tuesday morning in Cocoa, Florida, near School Street and Bay Avenue. Raymond Hoffman is in custody and faces several charges, including resisting arrest, aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, and other charges relating to the road rage fit. Hoffman reportedly parked his Chevy Tahoe, another Chevy truck, in the middle of the street and rammed into cars as they tried to go around him. That's when Hoffman got out of his car and began to strike the passing cars with a tire iron. He even broke the driver's side window of a passing truck in which the tire iron got stuck. There's a photo of it from Fox 35 TV in Orlando. It is quite a scene. Deputies shared the photo of the truck online. Other 911 callers to the incident reported that Hoffman was armed with a nail gun, allegedly threatening victims at the scene. When deputies arrived to the scene, they found Hoffman with a crowbar. They then said they ordered him to drop it, but he started moving toward the deputies, saying, "You will have to kill me." And then he dropped the crowbar and took off. So apparently you did not actually have to kill him.
He wasn't really about it.
During the chase after Hoffman, he reportedly threw a chair and then a barbecue at the deputies before he was taken into custody and cuffed shortly after. We are also provided a picture from the Brevard County Sheriff's Department of the man slumped against a police cruiser, handcuffed, with the front of his shorts torn and his boxers revealed. Don't know why he had the road rage, but he sure had a lot of it. The scene, by the way, is still active.
Through a barbecue. Do you think it was one of like the round ones?
Like one of those eggs, the green egg.
The big green egg?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can throw, unless you're just shoving it across the ground, one of those like 4-burner gas joints.
No way.
Like
no
I've
chance.
got. Yeah. You can't pick. Now, I can't even imagine throwing that.
No, the old style black Weber. That's what it had to have been. Who we got today?
I love our farm thief, especially because he tried to put the Department of Transportation stickers. I mean, that man thought of everything.
Yeah, I did.
We do have a little information from the 316 on the text line. A 600 bushel cart of corn, a gravity wagon, would be 30,000 pounds. Truck can pull it slowly, but can't stop.
Nice.
I'm guessing our guy did not factor in that he might not be able to stop.
Doesn't sound like it.
Once he got rolling with the corn.
That's very funny.
The slowest getaway possible.
Yeah. Does that knock off the speeding sheriff's deputy?
No, I'm going to say no. Still love the pettiness of the guy who wrote the deputy a check.
Yeah, that story's
wrote
great.
him up. Yeah.
No, I love that story. That is our winner today, once again, in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Let's get to a break, and let's get to Tim Fitzgerald after that here on 580 Sports Talk.
You can help make a difference and
Big
Kansas State victory.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Tim Fitzgerald, the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, host of the Life of Fitz podcast as well. Joins us every Wednesday at this time for our Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Make sure you're checking out all the phenomenal coverage of all things K-State at GoPowerCat.com, and that you're following Fitz on Twitter, where his handle is at Life of Fitz. Fitz, what's going on, my man?
It's a nice, peaceful day. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot going on. I'm laying around doing nothing, which, by the way, I'm really good at. And you guys are the highlight of my day. That's what's going on.
That sounds like a really low bar for your day, but we really do appreciate the words nonetheless.
There's nothing much going on here. I ate lunch. I had a couple beers. Tried to nap, but at my age, a couple beers mean you're not going to nap. You're going to get up a lot.
Hey, it is what it is. That's just one of those things that is part of the circle of life. I did want to ask though, this time last week, much busier for you and your crew down in Arlington. How was Big 12 football media days for you guys?
It was good. We were talking about it today. We did record a podcast that'll be up in the morning today. I have accomplished something. We were talking about it. It was kind of weird in the fact that we were really laser focused on what we needed to do. People are like, what are the weirdest things other coaches said? I'm like, I didn't listen to many other coaches. We were just, particularly on day 2 when it was Kansas State Day, we were just locked in on all that. And, our goal was to get our work done and get on the road so we'd be home before midnight, which we accomplished. So, yeah, it was I noted also that it didn't seem very Oklahoma and Texas centered like last year, where there's so much of it was about their departure. This year, it seemed like 12 schools in the Big 12 and those other guys haven't left yet. And they were just kind of doing their own thing with their larger media contingents. I recognize that, but it didn't seem like people really cared much about what they had to say about anything.
How would you assess the vibe around K-State, the 4 players and Gene Taylor and Chris Kleiman and the whole contingent that was there? I sort of felt like it was very business trip-like, and not necessarily in a bad way, but it was, hey, we just won the league. Like, we're sticking around. We're not a newcomer. We're not leaving. This is our house. We took care of business last year. We're here because this is business, and we're going to have fun, but this is work, and we're getting right back to work. And again, I don't mean that in a negative way at all, Fitz, but it really did seem very business-like. What was the vibe you got from talking to the guys and talking to Coach Kleiman last week?
I think that's very accurate. They came down. You do the same interviews over and over. You go, these poor guys, particularly Will Howard, goes from, one radio desk to the next. Now we've got all the YouTube channels going, which has been an interesting addition. And they're just literally hopping from interview to interview to interview and then doing the other stuff that they have to do. Got to be kind of relentless and tiresome, but you're right. They approached it like they did road games this past season. This is a business trip. Let's go take care of business and let's get home. I don't know. I think they were still there when we left, filming stuff for the TV stations, the hype videos and stuff that they'll play during the season for Fox and ESPN. I think they were still up there having fun with it. And we hit the road and got the heck out of Dallas.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, as he does every Wednesday at this time for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz and the gang's great work is available at GoPowerCat.com. You can find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, Will Howard was one of the Kansas State players who came down to Big 12 Media Days and spoke with the media. And Kansas State's had a run of veteran quarterbacks who were really calm and assured in front of a microphone. Skylar Thompson got used to it and was a good interview. And Adrian Martinez came down there to Big 12 Media Days last year and was a super interview. Will Howard and the transformation that he's made from backup quarterback that wide swaths of the fan base had no confidence in to a guy with a legitimate claim of being the best quarterback in the conference has really been something to see. How have you seen that reflected in talking to him, in seeing him in situations like this, dealing with the media?
Well, Will's always handled himself pretty well, even when he was a true freshman doing pandemic Zoom post-game interviews or Tuesday interviews. He handled himself pretty well. But in the same sense that when he stepped on the field, we all questioned what he would do, including himself maybe. He's taken that transformation now off the field, where he steps on the field now, he knows what he's going to do. He does it. And he's that way really with all of us. He's just very confident. He knows where he's been, where he's at, and it's been a journey, and he deserves to be where he's at. And I agree with that. His transformation on and off the field is remarkable. I do think he's the best quarterback in the Big 12. I was a little surprised to find myself the only one who voted him the MVP, because I think he's going to have a big year. You look back at his half-season stats, and they're impressive. They really are. And I think he's going to put up, if he stays healthy, he's going to put up some remarkable numbers this season.
Chris Kleiman is always very deliberate with the players that he chooses to mention by name when he's doing the preseason press, singling guys out when it comes to who's impressing in workouts and who's having a good camp. And more often than not, when he mentions somebody by name, they end up making an impact, even if it's not until the Big 12 championship game. I remember hearing last year, RJ Garcia is having a really good camp. And then you didn't even think about RJ Garcia until he was catching a touchdown pass in the Big 12 championship game. But it's always very deliberate with Coach Kleiman who he chooses to mention. With that in mind, who are the players you heard him and maybe the K-State players as well mention that feel like real dark horses to contribute in a big way this year for the Wildcats?
Well, he mentioned some of the young linebackers. It wasn't me that asked, but I was going to ask this question about Damian Lalio, which is hard to say, has come a long ways. So I just found that curious. I mean, he doesn't seem overly concerned about any position group. He knows they've got something to prove at safety, but he brought Kobe Savage, I think, to tell us all, remember this guy? He's back. And I just feel like the whole program is very confident and self-assured in the fact that they know who they are. They know what they need to do to succeed. They know what they did in their failures last year, and they don't want to repeat any of that. It's a very confident team. But when you have guys coming back like Daniel Green and the offensive linemen who came back for their COVID seasons, they're coming back for a reason. They're here to get business done, and I think they're ready to do that.
Final few minutes with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. That's where you can find all the best coverage of everything pertaining to the Kansas State Wildcats. Fitz joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for our Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Fitz, we were discussing quarterbacks in the Big 12 compared to the rest of the Power 5 earlier, and I know you guys are tuned in mostly to K-State and what's going on in the Big 12, but we were wondering, when you look at the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, so you're looking at Will Howard, Jalen Daniels, Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, how do they stack up with the best quarterbacks in other conferences? So I will ask you the same question. Where do you think the Big 12 approximately ranks among the rest of the country's elite when it comes to the best quarterbacks?
I think it's really a solid measurement. I haven't really caught up on this quarterback class around the country, but I think we can all agree that there's no Caleb Williams in the Big 12. That's the elite level of quarterback. But I think they're very good. I'm less sold on Ewers than a lot of people are. I saw him go up and down last year. I saw him be fabulous at times. Against Kansas State was one of them, but other times where he looked very pedestrian and wasn't very accurate. So I'm just less enthused about him. And Dylan Gabriel, I think the two best quarterbacks are in the state of Kansas, and I don't have any doubt about it. I mean, you've got a dynamic playmaker in Daniels that can put the entire team on his shoulders and carry them a long ways. And you've got kind of a confident machine, NFL-style quarterback now at Kansas State that distributes the ball and moves them in and out of plays, just does a lot of quarterback stuff, but also can get out and run if he needs to. So I just think the best two quarterbacks are in the state. And if Gabriel and Ewers weren't at Texas and OU, they wouldn't be brought up as much. They would be set aside a little bit more as, good quarterbacks, but not for consideration as the top quarterbacks in the conference. I think they just get a big bump out of the large media contingent covering those two schools in this conference.
Fitz, I wanted to pivot to basketball here as we have a few more questions on the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Kansas State participated, as all the Big 12 teams did, in the Big 12 basketball camp at Rucker Park earlier this week. And, of course, Kansas State made a bit of a name for themselves in New York City with their performance in the East Regional last year. They've got some coaches and players, obviously, with ties to NYC. How realistic is the possibility that Kansas State can maintain a presence, a recruiting presence there in New York City? And how much do you think that could be a major factor for the program as it moves forward under Jerome Tang?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, they've been back into those, areas again. For whatever reason, Kansas State's often been in New York City. I mean, that's Orlando Blackman's from Brooklyn. So it's just been an area where they've recruited in the past, and they're back in there. I like this initiative, like as I do the Big 12 Mexico initiative. It pushes the boundaries of the conference outside of the normal footprint of the Big 12. It tries to raise awareness about the conference so that more transient fans that don't necessarily have a team are more likely to tune in. And it's just one drop in the bucket, but it's part of the process of growing the brand and raising awareness of Big 12 athletics. And I think it's good for this conference, but I think it's really good for Kansas State. I think they made a real connection with their New York players into that market. And I think a lot of people in New York now have taken notice of Kansas State.
One last basketball question I had for you, Fitz, and I actually saw this idea proposed by your counterpart that covers KU, Michael Swain over at fog.net from 24/7, said that with summer classes winding down, there might be another graduate transfer influx into the transfer portal. Guys who finish up their final classes still have eligibility. There might be one final small wave of guys who enter. Do you think that might be an opportunity for K-State to take one last big push to find one of these quote-unquote dudes, very experienced guards that they've been looking for?
Yeah, and they're confident they're still going to get that. So that might be what's going on. I trust Michael Swain. I appreciate Michael Swain. What else can I say nice about him as I kiss his butt? I think he's a very intelligent young man, even though he has the soul of a 60-year-old grumpy person. But yeah, he's right. They're confident they're still going to bring in two more players, and they're going to find a good fit for the program. And okay, I believe him. After last year, I believe him. I'll see it all take place at some point. But yeah, the transfer portal is such a wild card, and they've made it more complicated in some ways now with all these windows, but it also has made it a little bit easier to understand.
And we are out of time, so we can bring this up another time, Fitz, but I thought Jerome Tang's quote to The Athletic this past week about how, July used to be for vacations. Now we're recruiting all year round. There's recruiting in May and June and July and August, and then during the year, you're re-recruiting your guys. It's kind of crazy that even in an industry that is truly 12 months year round, it's even more so year round now because there's just constant re-recruiting of guys.
Yep, it's just a mess, and it needs to get sorted out a little bit.
Tim Fitzgerald is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. You can find all the best work covering K-State sports over there. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can also find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Check out the newest edition of the Life of Fitz podcast as well. You can find that linked over at GoPowerCat.com. Fitz, we appreciate the time, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, boys. Great to talk to you.
That is the one and only, the great Tim Fitzgerald joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that until I saw Michael bring that up over on his site earlier today, that guys are finishing up. There will be more graduates here the next couple of weeks and another wave of potential transfers.
Yeah.
Insane.
It never ends.
No, it really doesn't. I don't feel bad for the coaches, but I do feel a little bit that you probably like to spend some amount of time with your families.
Yeah,
at least a little bit of
it being a 12-month of the year job in a way that it probably wasn't.
You were right yesterday. There's going to be more and more burnout. That is going to keep being an issue for college basketball coaches. We have to take a break. We've got the national and local news coming up, but in the 5 o'clock hour of the show, we've got headlines. We'll talk quarterback and more. All that's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Next up on the road.
1 hour to go on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Welcome back to the show. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. That is Dan Lucero. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this Wednesday afternoon. We've still got plenty to go here in this 5 o'clock hour of the show. But if you've missed any of the program up until this point, including our conversation last hour with Tim Fitzgerald, head to our website, 580wibw.com. Go to the podcasts tab, and then click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the show broken down hour by hour, easy to digest. You can go pick and choose whatever segments you want to go listen to, or alternately, head to our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. That's where you can watch the live video stream of the show and hang out with us in the comment section. Plus, you can go back and rewind to any part of the show. Our talk about Big 12 football and quarterbacks compared to the rest of the country, our chat with Fitz, our talk about Royals trade pieces earlier in the show, any of that. What is wrong with you? Of course, a favorite of everybody. You can go find that on our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. In this 5 o'clock hour of the show, we've got our headlines here in just a moment. We'll talk about quarterback season 2. That was confirmed by Peyton Manning on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. There will be season 2 of quarterback. And then we'll preview Tigers Royals coming up tonight as well. Ryan Yarborough back on the mound.
Yeah, hoping to have a second good start in a row since coming off the injured list.
Starters have been pretty decent.
They really have. They really have.
Which is nice. That makes for much, even if you end up losing, and I know the Royals won yesterday, much more enjoyable games when you at least get like 6 good innings.
Yeah.
As opposed to here was 3 1/3 and we gave up 6 runs and we're already out.
Your starter's competitive and you're not trying to dig out of like a 5-1 hole in the fourth. Yeah, for sure.
And of course, we will still take your texts, 785-272-9429, and your comments on YouTube. Again, the channel's called Sports on 580 WIBW. With that, let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Teased a little bit of this earlier when we were talking about the Chiefs who spoke at training camp, but let's get to some transactions today for both the Chiefs and the Royals. The Chiefs, they put Tershawn Wharton on the PUP list today. That was known. Andy Reid said it yesterday that they were going to put him on the physically unable to perform list. During training camp, you can be taken off that at any point. Isaiah Pacheco, though, does not go on the PUP list. We were told that was going to happen. It did not, in fact, happen today. Now, is it possible that happens later in the week? Sure. But I would imagine, Dan, if that was going to happen, why not just do it right away? When you already have him wearing the non-contact jersey, get him fully healed with that hand, ready to go. If you're not going to put him on right away, I have a hard time believing that's going to happen.
Yeah, they're not going to put him on at all, is what you would think for sure.
As for the Kansas City Royals, Daniel Lynch has been moved to the 15-day injured list with a shoulder strain.
Check that. That is Daniel Lynch the fourth has been placed on the 15-day injured list.
Oh,
yes, that's a change he made last night. He did not see the game or maybe hear it on the radio broadcast, but he took the field last night with Lynch IV on the back of his jersey. He is the fourth Daniel Aloysius Lynch in his family, and so he wanted to honor that lineage, so he put the Roman numeral 4 on the back of his number. He is believed to be the first Major League Baseball player to put the Roman numeral 4 on the back of his jersey. I'm hard-pressed to remember any major leaguer who's had a Roman numeral on the back of their uniform. We have seen it certainly in the NFL.
Sure.
Robert Griffin III.
Yeah. I can't think of a major leaguer who's ever done it. Daniel Lynch being Daniel Aloysius Lynch IV. If you heard that name and I said, where did that person go to college? In your first 3 guesses, you'd probably say the University of Virginia. So this really is just very on brand for him.
It really is.
But he is going to the IL. That is not so great. Austin Cox promoted back from AAA, and it sounds like he is going to get some action here in the near future. Annie Rogers from MLB.com reported earlier today before this became official that he did indeed have a locker at the K today. So that is your Royals update. That's a bummer for Lynch because that's a guy you've got to have out there pitching as many innings as you can and making every start in the rotation because you've got to know, is he worth the time long term? And it's a bummer because he's already missed so much time this year.
But and he did have a big drop in his velocity last night. It was pretty obvious. He gave up the 2 home runs to Spencer Torkelson. Just wasn't the same guy, and it was pretty obvious. And hopefully, it's nothing that's a long-term concern. It's something that maybe just fatigue coming off of an injury, and hopefully that's something that the Royals can manage. Speaking of Roman numerals, am I gaslighting myself, or did Patrick Mahomes wear Mahomes the second on the back of his jersey at any point?
Texas Tech.
He did it at Texas Tech. He has not done that in the NFL?
I do not believe so. I think he did at Texas Tech.
I think you're right. I think that might be what I'm thinking of.
But I do not believe he ever did. Man, if you just search Mahomes Texas Tech and look through Google Images, it's all pictures of him from the front.
Yeah, and if you search jersey, you just get like eBay listings.
Awesome. Sick. Very good website. This is a topic for a completely different day. But you know what used to be good and now sucks? Google.
Yes.
It's just all ads. And then if you look for images, you get a bunch of stuff to buy.
You know what's not as good as it used to be? Everything.
Well, yeah, that's also true. Here we go. I have a picture of a framed, signed Mahomes jersey, number 5, with the Roman numeral 2 on it.
Okay.
So, yes, we do have proof he wore Roman numeral 2 while he was at Texas Tech.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking at... here's a picture of him for Super Bowl, the Buccaneers Super Bowl, where he's just got Mahomes on his jersey. So it doesn't look like he's ever done it in the NFL.
And here's him talking to Cliff Kingsbury, an actual action shot. I'm sure Cliff was telling him something stupid, and he was like, "Dude, are you kidding me?" And yeah, he did wear 2. So yeah, you were half right there.
Yeah, half right. That works for me. But yeah, that has a change last night. Daniel Aloysius Lynch IV will now be referred to as Daniel Lynch IV professionally.
Can you think of any other famous Aloysiuses?
I think Bucketfoot Al Simmons' real name was Aloysius. Hall of Famer, baseball Hall of Famer. I think he was an Aloysius.
Aloysius Gonzaga is a Catholic saint. I imagine is the namesake of Gonzaga University, if I had to guess. Yeah.
So, yes, I was right. Aloysius Simmons, Bucketfoot Al, Hall of Famer. Played with Oakland and the White Sox back in the 20s and 30s. Put Aloysius into the search bar in Baseball Reference, and there are 57 players in Major League history who have had Aloysius part of their name.
Wow, that's a lot.
Here's Aloysius Frank Bejma, who played from 1934 to 1939. He went by Ollie. Aloysius Jerome Egan played from 1902 to 1906. He went by Wish.
Nice. That's sick.
Aloysius Stanislaus Travers, 1912. He went by Allen. A lot more middle name than first name, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I believe that. Absolutely believe that.
Aloysius Francis Naples played for the Orioles played for the Orioles or would have been the St. Louis Browns in 1949. He just went by Al.
Yeah, you can call me Al. Yeah, no, that's a really good middle name. First name, I don't know.
It is strong.
I don't know about that one.
The only active player, by the way, with that in his name.
Not surprised by that.
There's not a lot of modern Aloysiuses here. You're looking at like the 20s, 30s, 40s is about as recent as these get.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. Other than him, there's Harry Aloysius Hainbrink, played for the Milwaukee Braves and Philadelphia Phillies from 1953 to 1959. That's as recent as they get. Other than our guy, Daniel Aloysius Lynch.
That's incredible. But yeah, that is your transaction update for both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals.
For my first headline today on our 5A Sports Talk headlines, let's get to aggrieved NFL players. We'll start with the one everybody already knew was a little irked. That's Saquon Barkley, who went on a podcast titled The Money Matters, which is a little on the nose here. I've never heard of the Money Matters podcast. Everybody's got a podcast these days. Like everybody has a podcast these days. There's a bunch of like NBA podcasts hosted by random current and former players. Theo Pinson has a podcast.
Nah, man, get out of my face. No.
I was watching I forget what it's called. I think it's called Run Your Race with Theo Pinson. I was watching his interview with Bruce Brown, actually. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it, obviously, but yeah, everybody got a podcast these days.
Okay, really quick. This podcast has 2 episodes. The first one is with the guy who founded Twitter. The second is with Saquon Barkley. What is the angle here?
I've Googled The Money Matters, and there's the Money Matters radio show and podcast, Money Matters with Ken Murray, your money matters. But yeah, I've never heard of the money matters.
Huh.
The money matters.
Yeah, I'm probably not tuning into this one. Not going to search for this one on Spotify.
Anyway, I get maybe Saquon Barkley went on this podcast because it was hard to Google and find, and he didn't think anybody would see him saying the following quote: "My leverage is," and before I get to the rest of the quote, I should note that he said all of this before. This was recorded before Monday's deadline for franchise players to agree to long-term deals, which we now know that Barkley and the New York Giants did not do. This is what Barkley said. "My leverage is I could say F you to the Giants. I could say F you to my teammates and be like, you want me to show you my worth? You want me to show you how valuable I am to the team? I won't show up. I won't play you down." And that's a play I could use. Anybody who knows me knows that's not something I want to do. Is it something that's crossed my mind? I never thought I would ever do that, but now I'm at a point where I'm like, Jesus, I might have to take it to this level. Am I prepared to take it to this level? I don't know. End quote. I think that's pretty interesting because he's right that is his leverage at this point. It's just not come to camp, not play. Obviously, he'll be fined. He won't get paid the $10.1 million on the franchise tag, but he could do that. He could. He could say, I'm not showing up until you give me a new contract. That is his play if he wants a contract at this point. But I think there is something maybe admirable is not the right way to put it, but I think there's something honest about him saying, sure, I don't know if I've got that in me. I don't know if I'm prepared to say bleep you to my teammates and to the organization that drafted me and gave me this opportunity. And that is certainly what I think teams bank on when they just signed you to the franchise tag. What are you going to do? Are you going to not come? Are you going to not play? Are you going to spend a year of your athletic prime on the sideline? Are you not going to take $10.1 million?
Man, I appreciate the honesty, but I also feel like by saying that, you're kind of showing that right now you don't have the leverage, because the leverage exists because you say, I am willing to not show up. Like, by saying I might not want to me is not leverage. The leverage is I'm not coming.
Right.
Unless, well, and now they can't figure anything out, because that's the thing that I think needs to be restated. There is now no recourse to get a long-term deal done. They cannot get one done. The NFL rule is if you do not have it done by July 17th, that was the day on the calendar this year, you cannot get a long-term deal on the franchise tag. You get that one-year deal. The other issue here, and this sucks for the player. I will say this straight up. This sucks for the player. If Saquon does not sign the franchise tag and does not play this year and holds out for the year, he is not technically a free agent next year, because the Giants could, again, franchise tag him. And because he never signed this year, he doesn't get the second tag. If you get tagged a second time, you get 125% of the previous year's tag. So in Saquon's case, he would get in the neighborhood of $12.5 million next year.
Mm-hmm.
But because he has not yet signed this one, he would still get the initial tag. So at the very least, he'd be costing himself several $1 million and a year of true free agency, possibly. Again, I've said this before. I get why he might not want to do it. I think he is going to play because $10 million is more than $0. And it sucks and it's tough and it's hard to have all of your peak athletic years in all likelihood as a running back taken up by team control. But your alternative is that you're not going to play. And if you are comfortable not playing, and Le'Veon Bell he will always be the example here. Le'Veon Bell was comfortable saying, I'm not going to play.
He's like Flick in A Bug's Life.
Yes, he was very excited to make that comparison on Twitter.
Do you think he had watched it? Like, I don't know if Le'Veon Bell has his children, but do you think he watched it and was like, this reminds me of me?
I guess. Maybe he just loves the movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I wanted to pull up the Giants depth chart here, because I could not tell you off the top of my head who backs up Saquon.
Ahmad Bradshaw.
Man. Matt Breida. Ah, yes. Bastion of health, Matt Breida.
Yes.
Followed
Always
by
available.
I'm not kidding. Currently listed on the New York Giants depth chart, Eric Gray, who I was about to say I don't know who that is. But he went to Oklahoma, right?
Yes.
And then Gary Brightwell. That's your fourth string running back.
That's grim.
Yeah.
You know what those guys don't do? Elevate the quarterback that is your extremely mid quarterback you just gave $40 million a year to.
Right. And again, that is the problem here. It would have made more sense for the Giants to just say, forget both these guys, we're going to rebuild, than it made sense to give Daniel Jones $40 million a year and now to not really have recourse for your other best player. Because now, like, you have to stick with Jones, but you need other players around him to elevate him. It was bad roster management. You shouldn't just pay the guy for the sake of paying the guy you have. And now you're in this spot and you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
You're stuck. I do think he's going to play, though. I really do.
Yeah, I think he'll turn up.
It's hard to pass up $10 million.
It is. Even though you're probably more valuable than that to the Giants, it's hard to say no to that kind of money. Speaking of aggrieved NFL players, that's one we knew about. Here's a new one. 6-time All-Pro Dallas Cowboys guard Zach Martin, considering not reporting to training camp, per sources reported by ESPN's Adam Schefter, because of his unhappiness with his contract and the team's lack of interest in restructuring it. So the thing that the Cowboys do a lot is they give long-term deals. Like they gave Ezekiel Elliott a long-term deal. And by long-term deal, like usually in the NFL, we think of like 3-year, 4-year contract. The Cowboys give out 5-6-year contracts to guys. Like I think they did to Amari Cooper before he got out of town.
I think he got a 5-year deal. Yeah.
Well, they gave Zach Martin a 6-year deal, a 7-year deal, in fact, in 2018. That 7-year contract was worth $93.41 million, which was really good money for a guard at the time. And at the time, as now, Zach Martin's one of the best guards in the NFL. But this year, Martin is scheduled to make about $7 million less than the top paid guards in the league. Chris Lindstrom of the Falcons, Quentin Nelson of the Colts are at the top of this list at an average of $20 million a year. The Cowboys and Martin's reps had brief discussions back in February about reworking his deal. In March, the Cowboys restructured the contract to help create salary cap space, but Martin still feels like he's underpaid relative to the market, according to the source that spoke to Adam Schefter. So he is considering not reporting to training camp. There is a compelling argument that Zach Martin is the Cowboys' best offensive player. That's one thing. Like, they need him. They better make him happy and get him into camp, because we have seen in recent years what happens with one injury on the Cowboys' offensive line. Just the whole thing collapses like a house of cards. But the other thing is this does not happen. You don't hear about this kind of stuff happening on teams where, like, everything is good, where everything is harmonious. Like, this is not the kind of thing that is happening in Kansas City. This is not the kind of thing that happened real frequently in New England. Like, this is not the kind of thing that happens in organizations that are generally functional.
Letting Zach Martin go would be a complete disaster. Like, how old is Zach Martin now? Early 30s? He is
32. I think.
32. So yeah, that's older, but he still plays at an elite level. He is still one of the best guards in the NFL. Did you know, and I saw this earlier today, there are only, I believe, 2 interior offensive linemen who have ever been first-team All-Pro more often than Zach Martin. He got Rookie of the Year second-place finishes as an offensive lineman. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting in 2014.
Yeah.
That's insane. He was All-Pro first team as a rookie. Even Creed Humphrey, who's the best center in the NFL, did not get that as a rookie. He's been All-Pro first team each of the last 2 years and 6 times in his career. 6 times in what is now a 9-year career. That's outrageous. And 2 of the other years, he was second team All-Pro. The only team who wasn't an All-Pro was 2020 because he missed 6 games, and that season was fake anyway, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, and those are 6 of the 8 total games he's missed in his entire career.
This would be a disaster for the Cowboys. Like, genuinely a disaster. Yeah. He made the all 2010s team. He didn't even start the decade. He was drafted in 2014.
Yeah. Like we're talking future Hall of Famer, Cowboys Ring of Honor, like all of those things. He's a team captain now. Team captain doesn't want to come to camp. Thinks he's underpaid. Like that. Again, doesn't happen in a functional franchise.
Yeah, I honestly, our pal Matt, who's a regular listener and watcher on the YouTube, I know is a big Cowboys fan. So Matt, I apologize to you specifically. Do it, because I would love to make fun of the Cowboys more. Would absolutely love to do it. Give me as much fodder for Jerry Jones as I could possibly get. Next headline for me on today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got a little bit of an update on the Kansas and David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium update, rebuild, restructure, renovation project reported by the Lawrence Times earlier today. And according to this report, demolition of the west side of David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium could begin as soon as December to kick off their ambitious plan to revamp the entire area around 11th and Mississippi streets. And the Lawrence Times did get a copy of potential plans for the stadium, including where the new conference center would go. It would be on the front of the stadium. The Anderson Family Football Complex would be rebuilt into the side of the stadium. You've been to Memorial Stadium before, to the booth, excuse me. And there's kind of a gap between the two, the little walkway there. It would actually be built into the side of the stadium. They'll rehab the scoreboard in the north end zone, etc. The first phase of the rebuilding of the stadium is expected to be done by 2025. They're also going to use the space that is being renovated and rehabbed to include new student housing, an entertainment venue with a 2,500 capacity, a hotel, office space, and restaurant/retail space, which will include KU Athletic Retail, KU Athletics Retail,
a rally house.
A rally house, yeah, that's what they're going to put in there. Plus, the new renovations to the stadium, and this is not surprising, will include upwards of 100 new luxury suites. And again, the Lawrence Times has that information if you're looking for that. I have said before, I'm excited for what the new stadium is going to look like. I think it'll be cool to have updates there. I know a lot of fans who attend games in the crowd have wanted updates. I just want them to keep as much of the facade as possible. It is the oldest football stadium in America west of the Mississippi River, the 9th oldest in the country overall. I care about those things. I know most people don't. I care about the history and tradition. Also, the fact that it is literally a memorial to students who served in World War I, which is a very important thing. So I would like to keep a lot of the history and the facade together, but we shall see as they continue to rehab the stadium. But it's going to take a little while. Expect by 2025, it will be fully completed, or at least the first phase of it will be completed.
One other KU athletics note. This is a sad note. Gary Bedore reporting on Twitter that Lou Perkins has died, the former Kansas athletic director, passing away at the age of 78. More details forthcoming, but that is what is known, what is being reported. Lou Perkins has passed away.
Yeah, very sad. Obviously, when you think of Lou Perkins today, you think of the scandal at the end of his tenure with KU. And I think that while sad is fair and is understandable because it was a very big deal, but this is a guy who took over in 2003, oversaw a national championship in basketball, oversaw an Orange Bowl win, and to this point, one of the most successful eras in the history of Kansas football. The construction of the Anderson Family Football Complex, an early deal with Adidas that at the time was worth a lot of money, big money deal with ESPN back when Tier 3 rights were not handled by the conference. Huge deal for the KU radio network as well through IMG, which is now part of Learfield. He did a lot of good in his time, but obviously the end of his tenure with KU marred by the ticket scandal. And one way or the other, however you want to look at it, a very sad day for someone who meant a whole lot to KU athletics. Any other headlines for you today?
Nope, that'll call it.
That will do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. On the other side of this break, though, quarterback. If you haven't seen it yet, well, you're one of the few who hasn't checked out the newest Netflix football series. We've already got confirmation a second season will be filmed this year, will come out next summer. So who should be on it? Dan and I have our picks after this on 580 Sports Talk.
Dr. Andrew Pope at
We can confirm Dan's suspicions from last segment that at one point in time, Patrick Mahomes did have a Mahomes II Chiefs jersey. It was displayed at his introductory press conference when he was drafted, and I don't think has seen the light of day since.
This is like the sports version of people that swear Berenstein Bears used to be spelled one way and is now spelled another way.
Or that there existed a movie with Sinbad called Shazam.
Or that Febreze was spelled with 2 E's at one point.
Yeah, I would have assumed that one. I could have sworn Febreze had 2 E's. That's how I would spell it still to this
maybe
day.
It does. What do they call the Mandela effect, right?
The Mandela effect.
Yes, this is the Mandela effect.
Yeah, it's got 2 E's, but not back-to-back.
So it's not 3 E's.
Not 3 E's.
Like the word breeze.
Correct.
Has. Yeah.
Yeah. The Mandela effect is what that is called.
There's a great episode of How To with John Wilson HBO series that deals with the Mandela effect and actually involves John Wilson placing fake Febreze with 3 E's stickers onto bottles of Febreze at a grocery store.
That's pretty funny. That's really good. Speaking of the quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes was one of the stars of the Quarterback series that is on Netflix right now. It's the most watched Netflix show in the U.S. I saw today it was the number 5 watched show in the U.K. Around the world, people love Patrick Mahomes and also just love American football. And it's going to be hard going forward to, I think, replicate the success of this one. And I think a lot of shows that fall into this category, it's kind of that way. Do you remember QB1 on Netflix?
Mm-hmm.
It had Spencer Rattler, and I'm trying to remember who the other quarterbacks were. The one of them was Lance Legendry, was at one point committed to KU, and I'm trying to remember the other kid who was the quarterback on that show. But year after year, it got worse quality as that show went on. So it'll be hard to replicate Mahomes, who is the best player in the NFL and the most popular player in the NFL. Kirk Cousins going from, wow, this guy's a dork to, he's kind of a dork, but he's also really likable and seems like a really good family man. You can replace Marcus Mariota pretty easily. We already know, I mean, it's mean, but it's true.
The other day we were talking about the show when I was doing crosstalk with the mic'd up guys, and I said that Mariota was the Mark Brendanowitz of this season of quarterback. They just wrote him off in the middle like Mark Brandanowitz's character on Parks and Rec.
That's pretty funny. That's a good reference.
Thank you.
But we do know that there will be a second season. Peyton Manning confirmed that on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. So if you got to pick, you get to make the 3-man cast, the 3 quarterback cast of Quarterback Season 2. Would you, A, follow the same trend, the same style of low-end starter, average quarterback, superstar, or would you do something else? And who would your 3 quarterbacks be?
So I think there are a couple of other archetypes that would be interesting to see. Maybe like, and Mariota kind of fell into this, the journeyman trying to hang on and trying to maybe re-energize their career. I think Baker Mayfield would be a fascinating one for that, as he enters a situation where he is replacing literally the best of ever did it, Tom Brady. I think he'd be really fascinating to see this year. Brand new situation. Expectations couldn't be lower. A lot of instability as far as where he spent the last couple of seasons. A chance now to have this job and probably hold on to it for the bulk of the season. Although, who knows? Maybe Kyle Trask breathing down his neck would be intriguing TV. So I would say, if I got to choose, I would say Baker Mayfield would fit that particular archetype. I would say, as far as like the star quarterback, I'd like to know more about Joe Burrow. I'd like to see a little bit more behind the scenes with him, because I think that even the most dyed-in-the-wool Chiefs fan caught up in the Chiefs-Bengals burgeoning rivalry will admit, yeah, Burrow's all right.
Yeah.
Like, it's difficult to fully give yourself over to dislike of Joe Burrow beyond just the general, that guy plays for the team I don't like.
Yeah.
So,
he hasn't made any of the smack talk himself.
No.
He has not said a thing.
No. And he's a young guy, you know, in the league, and seems like an interesting character. So I would say Burrow, I would say Mayfield, and then I'd be looking to maybe see the story of like a young quarterback trying to make their way, even if they aren't the starter. Maybe it's a young quarterback trying to learn on the fly, or somebody in their rookie season trying to process it all. So somebody like Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson would be really fascinating for season 2 as well, because we didn't get to see that perspective in the first season.
Yeah, those are really good picks. I think for the star, I would take either Burrow or Allen. I really like Joe Burrow. I'm curious how much of his behind the scenes you'd get to see, because I feel like that's the quarterback we don't really know a lot about. Like, he's been in the spotlight for a long time now, but there's not a lot of his personal life that's out there. Did you know he has a super girlfriend who he's been with like forever?
No.
Yeah. Nobody knows. He also doesn't post about her on Instagram, which is weird, but her Instagram has him all over it. Anyway, beside the point. Like, I would love to know this stuff, because I feel like he doesn't let much of that out. But I think Josh Allen could be interesting. And you get two different arcs, kind of, because Burrow has been almost to the mountaintop. I mean, he's played in the Super Bowl. He has become essentially the NFL's QB2. I think a lot of people across the league would tell you they think Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback in the league behind Patrick Mahomes. So I think there's intrigue there. Allen, meanwhile, as we've talked about with the Bills as a whole, like, he kind of had a moment where everyone thought the Bills were the next big thing, and they missed it. And now, what kind of spot is he in? Personal life, he's apparently dating Haley Steinfeld right now. That's nice for him, I guess. So I don't know a lot about his personal life or what it's like to be the guy who's still perennially chasing. I think either one of them would be interesting. I would love to have Tua on the show with one caveat, because I think Tua is an interesting guy. I think he's a smart guy. It'd be cool to see the family stuff with him. There's the exception, though. I do not want a single second of Tua's dad on the show. Not one single second of Mr. Tua. No, thank you. That dude sucks. Do not want to see him one bit. If we get his wife and their baby and like his brother Talia, fine. I do not want to see Tua's dad for a single second. That means you have to throw it in the trash at that point. And I would like to get a backup. Like, I would love a long-term backup. Like
a Chase Daniel?
What is the year like? Fulton on Mic'd Up today said Gardner Minshew. And he's so weird that I think you'd probably get a lot of good content with him. But like Chase Daniel or Case Keenum, like, what's the year like for Case Keenum? And does he feel ever at a point, like, if the guy he's backing up plays badly, like, am I going to get my shot again? Same with Chase Daniel, who I've heard say things like that in the past. So I'd love to see a long-time backup get a chance, because nobody knows about backups except saying, look how much money that Chase Daniel has made for taking 100 snaps in his career. A few entries from the YouTube comments. Mark says Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. I feel like they'd probably mix in kind of a lower level guy, but I think all those would be kind of interesting. You get the same thing with Dak that you would get with Allen, I think. Like, hey, you've been a star for a long time now. What is it like to have the cachet but none of the success?
Yeah, you don't have the ring yet. You don't have the big prize.
Vance says Josh Allen, mentions Josh Allen. Geno Smith, interesting one.
That would be an interesting one, because here's a guy who had to wait his turn, really wait his turn. And now he has gotten his turn, and he's had, kind of this unexpected success. Nobody saw that coming for either him or the Seahawks last year. And then, boom, he's a comeback player of the year, and he's starting a playoff game.
Yeah.
And so now what do you do for an encore? Like, there's the pressure on that. Like, you're looking for narrative here because it's a TV show. And that is a pretty good narrative with Geno Smith.
Barbara also mentions Brock Purdy. I think you could, if you were going to do this about one team, the best team to do it about would be San Francisco. A team that's got Super Bowl hopes. You've got Purdy, who came out of nowhere, Mr. Irrelevant, and by the end of the year looked like their best option. And if he's healthy, if his elbow is fully healed, he's going to start week 1. You've got Trey Lance, they traded the world for and has not done anything. Not all his fault, but hasn't done anything. And then you've got Sam Darnold, who is now in that position where he's probably trying to get that one last chance. And all 49ers quarterbacks get hurt, so he'll play at some point. But I think that would be fascinating to see any of those three guys in San Francisco. Lance would be fascinating. Like, hey, dude, you're not even really a bust because you've barely played. But, like, what is it like to spend a year being the guy who just got usurped as the guy, and you've played less you've taken fewer pass attempts since you were a high school freshman than Tom Brady took total in 2021. Like, what is that like?
you could almost just do the entire quarterback room as just one
I think you
season.
could.
Yeah.
I really think you could. I don't think Kyle Shanahan would allow that, but I think you could definitely do it. I think it'd be good content. If you've got any thoughts, let us know either in the comment section on YouTube or in our text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. We'll talk to Major League Baseball after this, including Royals-Tigers. They'll play twice before we talk to you again. What should we expect in those next couple of games? We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, 546 on this Wednesday afternoon. We'll have a short show tomorrow. Royals and Tigers play in the afternoon, 1:10 first pitch on Thursday for the series finale.
And Zach Greinke is going to start that one, it sounds like.
All right.
He's on track to do it, and it sounds like he will come off the injured list and make the start Thursday afternoon.
Good. Glad to hear that for Zach. Maybe getting a little chance to rehabilitate and rest a little bit is going to help him surge in the second half. That would be nice to see. It would be nice for him because I, again, sort of feel like this is it for Zach Greinke. So it'd be nice to get a couple of good outings in there before this season winds down. So the Royals will play twice between now and when we next speak to you. Coming up tonight, do we have a confirmed starter for tonight? I know we do.
Yarbrough.
All right, that's right, Ryan Yarbrough. Duh. I was thinking of tomorrow. Do we have a confirmed starter yet? Yes, Ryan Yarbrough going to go tonight for the Royals, and now obviously Zach Greinke going to go tomorrow. Eduardo Rodriguez pitching for the Tigers this evening. Can we get a second straight out of Ryan Yarbrough? I mean, he was awesome in that last start before the All-Star break when he had just come off the injured list. So good to see. And like we talked about earlier, the starting pitching has actually been quite good as of late.
Yeah, we've seen a run of good starts in a row since the All-Star break ended and the second half resumed. And you'd hope to see another one tonight. Yarbrough with his sub-average velocity, trying to keep the Tigers off balance, get deep into the game so you don't have to rely as much on the bullpen, which would be nice because you did have to kind of ride the bullpen, and Barlow threw a bunch of pitches last night. I want to see if the offense can keep it rolling. That inning last night was one of the more fun half innings of Royals baseball all season. I'm trying to find the box score of that inning. They scored 5 runs in the 4th. That was a fun, action-packed inning of Royals baseball, even if it did include some terrible base running on the part of MJ Melendez, and it could have been maybe an even bigger inning, but you had Eddie Olivares with a big hit that inning. Drew Waters had the triple. Dairon Blanco had a bunt single. Like, it was a fun inning of baseball that helped the Royals jump out to a lead that they would not relinquish. I hope they keep some offensive momentum going tonight.
Yeah, that would be really nice to see. I hope they do too. If you're going to be bad, you might as well be fun. So more of that would certainly be a win. Again, we've got 580 Sports Talk overtime, top of the 6 o'clock hour. We will have Royals pregame at 6:30 on the Royals Radio Network, followed by the first pitch at 7:10. Ryan Yarbrough on the bump. And then postgame to follow. All of the Royals action can be heard on the Royals Radio Network right here on 580 WIBW. Round Major League Baseball, some other notes here. ESPN put out a piece today about potential trade packages to go get Shohei Ohtani. I don't think he is going to get traded. I will repeat that. I do not believe he is going to be moved. But Jeff Passan ranked various packages that could be sent to the Angels in exchange to get Shohei Ohtani. The one he says would be the most likely to get a deal done is from a team that the Angels have already said they won't trade with, and that is the crosstown Los Angeles Dodgers. I would ask you this, even without looking at specific players you would give up, like a specific name of a prospect or a specific name of a Major League Baseball player, if you're the Angels, how many legitimate, already established major leaguers would you ask for in a trade? Or would you rather have only prospects?
That's a philosophical question more so than it's like a value question. It's tempting to take the prospects and hope for them to reach their high ceiling. But I think for a guy like Shohei Ohtani, if I'm going to trade him, especially if I'm going to trade him only 4.5 games out of a playoff spot, which is where the Angels find themselves entering today's action, I better get some big leaguers. I better get some guys who can help me right away. I better at least get somebody who can fill his role, his job in the starting rotation. He's not going to do it as well, but I need a big league starting pitcher, and I need a big league bat with some thump. And we'll start there. And that's before I pillage your farm system. Because if I have to trade Shohei Ohtani, if I'm the Angels GM and Artie Moreno says do it, then I'm going to get everything I can possibly get for the most unique player maybe in the history of the game.
I would do it too. And I was reading through these scenarios from ESPN. And by the way, if you think we're talking about Shohei Ohtani a lot, or you turn on ESPN and they're talking about him, or MLB Network and they're talking about him, it's because he's the best player in baseball.
And he's the most unique athlete we've got going right now, because there's nobody else doing what he's doing at the level that he's doing it at. Let me pass along this anecdote. My wife and I, my wife has some friends live north of town, and we go once a month. We go up Sundays, and the other friends come up and they bring their kids and have like a potluck dinner. It's a nice thing to do. We do it once a month. And usually I get handed the TV remote because I'm just a magnet for these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I put the TV on Sunday Night Baseball. And when I tell you that there were a couple of children, like 8-9-year-old boys, who dropped everything to watch Shohei Ohtani at bat and root for Shohei Ohtani to hit a home run when he came on the screen. Kids who were, running around and being 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, not paying any attention to the TV. Shohei Ohtani came on and it stopped. It stopped to watch this guy. That's how unique this guy is. That's the kind of weight he carries. I don't think there's any other baseball player they're dropping everything to watch.
I can't think of anyone in recent memory who you do that for. Barry Bonds home run chase.
Yeah.
People weren't doing that for Aaron Judge unless you lived in the tri-state area.
Yeah,
most people were annoyed.
Yeah. Yeah, they were cutting into college football with it. I was annoyed, and I love baseball.
Can you name any player that has led the majors in home runs and triples at the same time?
Because Willie Mays probably did it once.
That's what Shohei Ohtani is doing right now. He leads the majors in home runs and triples. By the way, he's got a 3.50 ERA. He also leads the majors in slugging percentage, OPS, and total bases. And by the way, for what it is worth, Willie Mays never led the majors in both at the same time.
Huh.
Now, he did lead the majors in triples 3 times and home runs 4 times. Oh, no, you were right. I'm sorry, Dan. I missed one. 1955. Willie Mays in 1955.
How about that?
Yeah, that's the kind of player we're talking about. And by the way, he's an elite starting pitcher, too. He's unbelievable. Let's get to a break. We'll finish things up with the final word after this. Time for a quick final word to wrap up 580 Sports Talk.
The Women's World Cup starts overnight here in the United States.
2 a.m.
2 a.m. kickoff. New Zealand and Norway get the Women's World Cup started. Of course, the United States are the favorites to win what would be their 3rd Women's World Cup in a row. Probably the final Women's World Cup for Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan. Lots of young stars like Sophia Smith and Naomi Girma are set to become household names. I love the World Cup. I don't love live sports at 5 in the morning Central Time. It's going to be a little tough. But hey, if you're a real night owl, you got options, plural, for your late night live sports or early morning live sports with the U.S. Open getting started. So I like the U.S. to win the Women's World Cup, and I like Rory to win the Open Championship.
Yeah, I think the U.S. women are going to get it done as well. Final word for me today. Pretty cool to hear from Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Wanye Morris, their first appearance speaking at training camp. Here they already have a little brotherhood going on. Good vibes. All the vibes are positive. You can't ask for anything more as training camp opens. We're on tomorrow following the Royals Series finale with the Tigers. So until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Appreciate you for listening to 580 Sports Talk. We've got overtime next before Royals baseball.
Hey, I'm Andy,